Welcome to the Independent Characters, episode 241. This is Carl, and I am joined by
Sky Herrick.
Sky Herrick of Herrick Games.
Yeah.
One of our favorite game stores in the Bay Area. Actually, a show sponsor, too, so getting myself into position here. You may notice that Josh is not here. Josh needs to take a short break, hopefully really short from the podcast, but we'll see how well that works out. He's got a bunch of stuff going on. And so, yeah, there will not be a video component to the podcast probably for the foreseeable future until, you know, if I do a remote show with remote guests, I'll record it there in our video player and then upload that with all the video presentation stuff. But for the time being, just back to audio. Sky has been nice enough to fill in for Josh, at least this episode. We'll probably rotate through a few guests as we proceed, but yeah, I'm kind of bummed.
Yeah,
I was really enjoying the video stuff with Josh. Although I will tell you, going back to just an audio recording is a whole lot easier.
Yeah,
so.
I didn't shave beforehand.
Good choice. I'm not wearing pants.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna say anything.
All right. Well, listen, this episode 241, is sponsored by two of our Patreons, Fat Lamecaster, P-H-A-T Fat, Lame T-T, actually, Lamecaster, and Big Dre. So thank you so much for your support. It's always super, super helpful. So let's see what else. We're part of the Goonhammer Media Network, so make sure to check it out at media.goonhammer.com for more shows and information. Also, just want to throw out there, I am very slowly uploading old episodes to our current feed. I have to do it about 1 or 2 a month because we have a limit on how much we can upload, and it's not worth going up to the next tier. But they are slowly getting replaced up there. I figured out how I can do it without suddenly bombarding people's feed with old shows. So that was my main concern there. This episode, which is titled From Rivalry to Respect, is really about how to foster kind of a positive gaming environment. And Sky, you make the perfect guest in this case, because I think we're kind of approaching it from two different angles. And actually, I wish we had a third person here. Like Brett would have been a really good third person.
Yeah, 100%.
So I may
splice him in.
Probably not for this episode, but I may talk to him as bonus stuff for the Patreon content.
Yeah.
Because Brett, and you'll hear more about Brett soon, but Brett had run the Faultline 40K group for about 4.5 years, and that president position is supposed to be a 2-year position, but all through COVID and all that dragged out, and he did an amazing job running that, and is just a great guy. So,
yeah.
So this episode, we'll talk all about fostering what is a gaming community, what's a good gaming community, you know, how we can lend to that. But also, Sky, you're coming to this from an angle of running a store.
Yeah.
And trying to build a community around that store, which is a really interesting perspective, I think.
Yeah, and it's a little bit different, right? Because you've got the commercial aspect, and you've got a little bit, you can't just be like, nope, you can't come here just for no reason. So
right.
There's a little
Whereas
bit
at my
more.
house, I'm like, well, I just don't invite that.
Yeah, like you're not coming back. And mine, there's a little bit more to it. And then there's also the commercial aspect as well. Yeah. So there's expectations that people have of me rightly because they've invested.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to work around those or work within them.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll get into that. But first, let's jump into Elite Choice.
Yeah.
These are things we have picked from the IC community, whether that's our Facebook group, our Discord channels, and various things there. And then as soon as don't let me forget to talk about the Hobby Progress Challenge.
Yeah.
After this. So my choice for Elite Choice was Dan Eaton and his Lictor.
Yeah.
And this model, man, first off, I'm super excited the Lictors are now like in plastic. And, you know, it was such a nightmare of a model. I remember when I was playing Tyranids and I had a metal one. And like I was assembling it and I was just like, I guess I'm not playing a Lictor.
Yeah. Yeah, they were all weighted incorrectly and they'd fall over and all their limbs would break off.
It was terrible. But man, it's a great model. It's so detailed. It's so good looking. And I love Dan's color choices here. In particular, I like the use of like the pinks on like inside the joints and inside the I don't know, what do you call them? Like the weaponized.
The limbs.
Yeah, that hang out above. It's just a fantastic use of color. It's beautiful. It's well done. The basing's perfect for it. It's everything I wish I had done with my Tyranids. So
I really like how simple the scheme is. Like you can, often you have to edit on your Warhammer stuff, and there's really only 3 or 4 colors, right? The spot yellow on the top, but it really makes it vibrant and pushes it. I would really like this model as well.
Yeah. And one of the problems with my Tyranids, I've said this before, is they're brown and green. Which I love. Like I love the look of them, but I put them on swamp bases and they blend into the bases really well. And this pops from the base, and and I mean, mine with good reason. It was supposed to be like this splinter fleet that broke off and got isolated on this planet, and then is spreading out from there. But it's like, but it doesn't. It doesn't pop. So.
That contrast is always really important, especially if you're using brown, or like you got a lot of brown in this model, right? And so you've got the warm, and then you've got the blue. Cool.
Oh, that's true.
And then you've got the cool base, so it plays off of one another and gives you the contrast you need to see it.
Yeah. That's a good point. All right, what'd you pick?
I picked Chris Mills' awesome Howling Griffins. And I was glad I got to it before you did. First of all, painting yellow and red independently is always fun. Mm-hmm. Painting them together is an extra layer. Painting them together in quarter panels is an extra layer. And then just doing it really well. And I've always loved Howling Griffins. I remember when I first was a kid researching stuff on the early days of the internet, there's this guy painting Howling Griffins, and some of them he did in that like tiger stripe camo pattern from the Batum War.
Yeah.
And so ever since then, I've just really loved Howling Griffins, and they're so cool. And it's just awesome. I love seeing full army shots. There's just something really striking about them.
Quartered Marines are like the pinnacle of and Howling Griffins is actually my favorite chapter.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, they're a splinter chapter from the Ultramarines. Like I actually had like an idea for a novel for them that would kind of flesh out the chapter, and I ran it by Aaron Dembski-Bowden. Because he found my Carlus Tutulus to be the stupidest name for a Space Marine ever. But I was talking about my idea for this. He's like, "Oh, that's actually a pretty good idea." Listen, I'll throw it out there because I'm never going to write a novel. But my idea was I would fashion them kind of around how, I would do a lot of research into like French knights and how not just their heraldry, but like how they operated and what their structure was and all that, and what their not so much beliefs, but like their traditions and that kind of thing. And I would incorporate that into Howling Griffins and kind of base it off of that.
Yeah.
And I still think that's a really cool idea. But the thing that put me off of painting them was the yellow at that time.
Yeah.
Now, if I were actually going to play Marines, like that would be a potential Marine chapter I would do.
Yeah. It's cool. Yeah. I feel a lot more comfortable painting yellow recently after some of my experiences, and red as well. I think the quartering would be the hard part for me.
It's not that bad.
Because
it's not that bad.
Doing my half ones with my bright orange and black has been like hard enough.
It's not that bad. You especially for the Marines, you like tape them off.
Yeah.
You spray it, you get some overspill, but then you just go in and correct that with a brush.
I mean, the nice thing is if you overspill the yellow, then you can go back in the red, and red over yellow just makes it more vibrant. So
for sure.
It's just you have to plan it and think through it. But but they're great. And again, talking about basing, right? He had really vibrant colors, and then his basing is pretty muted. So it really makes them pop as well. So, and then, I mean, I'm a sucker for whole army shots. So I'm a fan.
All right. Well, and then Shell's Kiss for this episode is Kevin Phaneuf and his Crethuza. Crethuza is a character for Age of Sigmar, Daughters of Khaine?
Yep.
Daughters of Khaine. Couple things about this. One, this was Kevin's first go at this marble effect, he says, in his post. And the marble looks fantastic. And that was actually the first thing Shell called out, not the fact that the robe is purple. and the fact that she totally digs like ravens and crows and stuff.
Yeah.
We have like a series of crows that live near us. She calls her murder.
Her murder, right? Yeah. She was talking about that the other day.
Yeah. And so like this like kind of touched on all those things. I think it's a great looking model.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. The white hair is done really well.
Yeah.
And trust me, I've got some experience with white hair right now.
Yeah, it's cool. The marble effect looks a little bit like veins and blood, right? They're the daughters of Cain and very bloody. So that's a cool call out. And I'm a big fan of AOS models in general.
Yeah, a lot of them are really good.
So artistic, right? GW has really free license to bring in whatever they want. And then,
that was the whole point.
Yeah.
That was the whole point.
And so you see some of the really beautiful models in AOS. So a lot of painters really like them, and you can see why, because they do really, there's lots of different really cool textures on one model.
She's like Crethusa the Crone Witch or Crone something.
Something like that.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. Well, congratulations to all those people who got mentioned. Absolutely love the work. So let's talk a little bit about the Hobby Progress Challenge before I move on to Hobby Progress. I'm
glad you remember, because I totally forgot to remind you.
I just even told you. So if you have not listened to the end of the last episode, the 2024-2025 Hobby Progress Challenge is in effect right now. It is, as we record this, not quite mid-July. It is not too late to join. It's actually never too late to join this thing. The Hobby Progress Challenge goes over the course of the next 12 months. You can join at any time. You just get fewer entries. For every month that you complete a challenge and you set those challenges yourself, it's super flexible. You get entry into a prize drawing. And at the end of the challenge itself, we will draw some prizes that some of our sponsors have delivered or will be delivering. And I've got some commitments from the great folks at Table War that are going to be providing some stuff. So I'm super excited about that. But we'll reveal what those prizes are as we kind of get it all locked in. But the point is really to get your gray plastic stuff painted.
Yeah.
And, it's really funny. Like whenever you run something like this, first off, and I'm guilty of this myself with Josh's Necromunda campaign. Read the instructions.
Yeah.
We've put almost everything in the instructions. Like it is rare that a question comes up that is not counted for in the instructions. So, and there's even an FAQ like that I will update at the bottom of the instructions in case somebody does ask a question we didn't address. The other thing is, like, we're being pretty flexible about this. I mean, it's like, oh, well, I don't have, like, one question that came up that was a good one is, hey, my army does not contain anything that is like knight sized, like super heavy sized.
Yeah.
I think it was like a Dark Elder. And yeah, you could buy like a Tantalus or whatever from Forge World, but it's Legend.
Have
and
them. Yeah.
And it's like, no, we're not going to force you to go buy it. I'm like, you know what? Paint the biggest model you got.
Yeah.
We'll just make a note in there. Hey, this is the biggest model my army has. Cool. All right. Approved.
Yeah.
Like we are not going to be super sticklers on this. The real objective here is, are you getting your stuff painted? It's to help you.
Yeah.
And to provide some entertainment for the community and, hopefully some impetus for you, like pushing yourself to get things done.
Yeah.
So, don't worry about it. You can join at any time. Every month you complete something, you get a credit. If you join 6 months into it, you can't go back and say, oh, I painted these previous 6 months. Like you're out, but it's a drawing. I mean, you could have one entry and potentially pull a win, so now mind you, if you've completed all 12 months, you will get put into a different category for the initial drawing for the biggest prizes, but the prizes are going to be pretty good, man. So I am not too worried about
it. I honestly was not really planning on it, but then I saw so many people posting pictures and I was like, oh, I've got so much junk that I have to paint. I was like, I'm just going to throw it in there and it's a good reminder,
At this point, we have 140 people signed up. Like really fast.
Yeah. And that's just the first month. Like these things tend to snowball, and people will drop in and drop out. And I really like the fluidity of it, right? People will be like, I remember them saying like, oh, I didn't post on day 2. And you're like, just post it. Yeah. Like now, the point is to
especially July. Yeah. Like you can post the last day and then it completed the last day and we're fine with that. Now, as we get into June, we do have to set some parameters. So
August.
August. August comes after July.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, Scott.
At least in the Northern Hemisphere.
Once we get into August, you have to have it in by the 6th, right? That's midnight Pacific time for somebody who's okay. But if it rolled in at 1 a.m., I am not going to.
Yeah.
Honestly, even if it skated in on the 6th, I'd be like, whatever. Yeah. I mean, we're not going to be super sticklers to that. But eventually we have to say, look, we can't keep going.
Well, another thing is like every exception just does extra work for you and Shell.
This is correct.
So we'll talk about respect in the gaming group, right? This is part of a gaming group is recognize the people that are doing the work and be respectful of their time and just like try and make it easy for everyone to have a good time.
That is a really great point. That's a really great point. And Shell has really stepped up and is moderating all this. And she's not super familiar with Discord, but she's learning about it really quick.
Thank you, Shell.
She's learning about it real quick. And so great stuff going on there. Start getting this backlog knocked out. I know I'm getting my stuff knocked out. I had to go through and update like my whole Kanban board. And like I'm so excited. I'm making such progress. I'm moving all these things to completed rows. It's amazing. So
I'm happy for you and a little bit angry.
All right. Well, let's start with your hobby progress, Sky. Speaking of the Hobby Progress Challenge, let's talk about your hobby progress and what have you accomplished like in the last couple of weeks, Sky?
So luckily I actually have some things to say that I accomplished, but
yes. This one in particular.
Yeah. So at my store, roughly every other month, I host a big paint class and bring an artist in, and it's been really, really cool.
Especially now that you have a bigger store.
Yeah, bigger store. So a couple weeks ago, we had Dan Osborne down from Portland to teach us how to paint a night, and it was really cool for a lot of reasons. One, Dan's amazing, great friend.
He wasn't such a jerk.
I know, right?
He's so nice too. He's like the nicest guy.
He brings us gifts every time he comes.
Oh my God.
I'm like, Dan, stop. I'm going to start feeling bad. But I painted my first Chaos model ever. Did stencils, did liquid mask. It was really cool for me as well because a long time ago, not that long, like six or 7 years ago, my first class back in the hobby was a CK Studios class where I painted a night. And that's where I met Dan. I met a lot of the people in the gaming group and sort of kicked me off into coming back into the hobby, my store, everything like that. So it was really cool to come full circle. Super fun. I think it turned out really well and I learned a ton. So that was really, really fun.
Everybody left very excited about liquid mask.
Yeah.
Josh awesome. Is excited about it. I want to test it out.
Yeah.
It looked cool.
It was cool. It was, and like the trim on my night took 45 minutes on the entire night.
That's incredible.
It was so fast. So it was cool and it was really fun. So, and then I've been working on my Necromunda gang for the campaign. I got those mostly completed, and then I'm adding them in on the hobby challenge just to finish them off.
Nice.
We'll talk a little bit later about games played, but working on my Space Marines with my oldest. And then we just kicked off an Old World campaign at the store. So I'm working on my dwarves from when I was 14. I pulled them out and repainting them, and it's really cool. There's a lot of nostalgia in my hobby progress in the last few weeks.
That's really cool.
It's been really fun.
I know like Ed and Travis have been talking about Old World. Josh is super hot on it.
Yeah.
I'm out. Like I can already feel like that magnetic pull.
Yeah.
Right. Where it's like, oh, well, okay, maybe. And I'm like, I don't like the look of the game. Like, I think what it is like, I just like being a part of what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But if I'm realistic, like I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. My Legions Imperialis stuff sits there half painted.
We don't talk about those yet.
Because I'm so focused on 40K, right?
Yeah.
So I find myself doing reality checks with myself lately, which has been very helpful to my wallet. Speaking of which, I still owe you for that paint.
Yeah, I do not do reality checks, and that's why I'm in 2 campaigns and committed to all sorts of different games.
I heard that from your wife. Which, by the way, your wife Jade is awesome.
Yeah,
like you guys are fantastic. Your kids are great. We've had you over a number of times now. Yeah. Absolutely love hanging out with you and gaming with you. So
Willow was really sad she wasn't coming with me.
Oh no, your daughter is adorable.
Yeah.
Okay.
What have you completed in the past?
Well, let me tell you.
As if we weren't all jealous and have seen the awesomeness.
Let me tell you. So having moved on from Shell's Night Lords, I've begun my Sisters of Battle. And the first thing I did for the Hobby Progress Challenge was put up my Sisters of Battle actual squad of sisters. Yep. 10 person squad, I guess 10 model squad.
Yeah.
10 girl squad, 10 woman.
10 humans.
10 sisters.
10 sisters. There we go.
For my Adeptus Sororitas, and completed those in about 3 days. Those 10, all except the bases. Now, we were playing around, Shell and I were playing around with rollers from Green Stuff, and what's the putty?
Milliput?
No, not Milliput. Super Sculpey.
Oh, yeah.
And I wasn't really liking the pattern that I had, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be, how can I paint this? And then we ordered a different one, and in the meantime, I found on Etsy some bases that I was like, oh, these would be amazing.
Yeah.
I had bought some bases from Dragon Forge a long time ago for this project, and as I went to go use them, I was like, these are really bulky for what I want.
Yeah.
They're great bases. I have a huge set of them. And I'm like, oh my God, I spent hundreds of dollars buying all these bases, and I'll find a use for them, or I'll sell them to somebody else who wants them. But so I completed 10 Sisters of Battle. This is a complicated army to paint.
Yeah. Lots of details.
Different
textures.
Different colors pressed up against each other, especially the cloaks, where the insides are white, the exterior is red. Oof. Making sure the line is lined up, the white, the blacks on the models. There's a bunch of different shading you have to do. The hair, which I've got a technique down for the hair.
And you're doing Bloody Rose?
Order of the Bloody Rose.
Order of the Bloody Rose, yeah.
And so, red is not really been my strong suit in the past, but I'm super happy with the way this has gone. I started off by spraying a bunch of tanks, using the kind of panel modulation that we learned at CK Studios.
Yep.
And I was really happy with the way those came out. I actually had printed out pictures of when Caleb painted Shell's initial Rhino, did the undercoats on the Rhino, and I had taken photos of him doing it. And I printed those out and had them up on my thing so I could see where, because I've had the hardest time comprehending the panel modulation, where do I put, and so looking at that, now I've got it. I'm like, oh, I was kind of doing this backwards. Now I kind of get it. It's not as extreme as it looks in the picture.
Yeah.
In the picture, it looks super extreme, and it's dark. I mean, don't get me wrong, but it's not quite as extreme as that.
Yeah.
So I painted up the battle squad. Then, having completed that and completed my challenge for the month, I was like, what am I going to paint next? And I really wanted to paint one of these rhinos. The Sister of Battle rhinos are not like the Space Marine rhinos.
Yeah.
I mean, they are so full of detail.
Yeah.
It's almost a night and day experience to painting a Space Marine.
Yeah, Space Marine one's just a metal box.
Yeah. This has everything on it, and I really wanted to do it justice. And you have this bright whites against these reds outlined by these blacks. And so I spent my time kind of, researching. I had found examples that I already had on my computer. I'd stored pictures away, and I had this rhino pictured, before. And so kind of looking at that, I got ideas and kind of took my own path on it. But by the time I finished it, I was super stoked with the way it came out.
It looks awesome.
Oh, I'm so happy with the way it came out. Now, here's what I'll say. I mean, those sisters took me 3 days to paint up. It was probably 20 plus hours.
Yeah.
Painting them. And I didn't do the bases yet. I got to do the bases. But I could do a Space Marine in half that time.
Yeah.
A Space Marine squad in half that time.
Yeah.
It is definitely way more work. But the results kind of speak for themselves when they're done. Then, having just completed the Rhino, I was kind of riding the high of that. And I was like, okay, what do I want to paint next? I should really paint another 10 Sisters of Battle, but I just can't bring myself to do another 10 models at one time. Maybe I should do a Retribution squad. You know what? I'll paint St. Celestine and her two Gemini Superior.
Superior. Oh yeah.
And because they were so different, right? Like there was going to be golds in these, like heavy golds, the wings. Like I think Celestine is such a cool model. Painting that model while it's mounted to a base with its springy.
Yeah, it's like a bobblehead.
Yeah. Was complicated. Fortunately, all the backpacks I was able to separate because like a dingbat, I had assembled them entirely.
Yeah.
But I was able to separate the backpacks from the models. And so that made life a whole lot easier. I gave like this beautiful blue, kind of exterior fade to the wings. And I got to tell you, I'm super happy with the way they came out. Like,
I just saw him. You showed him to me. And I really liked him, especially like, I really like it when you're able to, interpret a color scheme and apply it to other models.
Yeah.
And you can tell like those are in the same army, but there's so much more gold.
Yeah.
And the white and the blue, like you're going to immediately see her on the board. Right?
Yeah.
And it's very vibrant and it's really simple, right? It's not, you didn't spend two brushes, wet blending 16 different colors. No. You use the effect, your tool, but it comes out and it's really vibrant.
Now I do have to say, whoever painted Adon Celestine had done something very similar.
Yeah.
Because I messaged Adon, I was like, hey, send me a picture of your Celestine because I remembered it. And he sent it over. I was like, okay, I see what they did. Like, I'm going to do something like that.
Yeah.
And his is all like his Celestine's all in black armor.
Yeah.
And I really went for the gold vibrant. And it just rocks.
Yeah.
Like it just rocks.
It's good. I like it a lot.
I'm so stoked.
Yeah. And the other thing I feel like is a lot of times when you're transferring a color scheme to a different model, like half of it is just mental, right? Like, where do I put the red on this one? Because I want it to match. I don't, like going from a model to a tank, that's often hard, right? Maybe the technique that works on a model doesn't work on a tank.
Yes,
right? And
very much so.
That's a huge part of it, is figuring that. And that's often for me a huge block. It's like, oh, I learned how to paint in one of my paint classes a Kratos tank, right? For ironwares. I'm like, how do I do that man-sized?
Right. So like a lot of times I'll use washes on a small miniature, but on a tank it doesn't really work. And so to get that matching, yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky. But God, this army, when it's done, is just going to be, I think, a thing. Like, Josh has been working on his Eldar, and like we talked about how he's doing this orange, and I'm like, oh, I really don't like orange.
I love orange.
But his orange looks incredible. Yeah. Like what he has done is like that orange and bone that he got the idea from Colin, and he's just used his templates, and like he and I have been sharing pictures back and forth, and he was like, I think we're both really like kind of elevating our painting on both these projects, and I agree. Like I am normally where I'd stop off, I like feel like the need to progress further because there's so much detail on these.
Yeah,
they're
such rewarding models when they're done well.
Celestine stands on these like two scrolls. That's the only thing attaching her to the base. And I went through and by hand with a Micron pen wrote all the text in there, and then left some gaps so I could put some like tiny decals in spaces. And the first time I spent 30 minutes, drawing all the lettering and writing it all out. Like the scrolls are long on both sides. And then I messed up my wash that I do for scroll.
Yeah.
And it was way too dark, and it like wiped out the whole thing. And I was just like, oh my God, I have to redo. Painted it all over again, redid all the lettering. This is the second go at it. I think the first go might have looked a little better because I probably had a little more patience.
Yeah, that too. You're just like, I just need this done.
Yeah. So very happy with the way the sisters are kicking off. I think next I'm just going to knuckle down, do another 10 Sisters of Battle squad.
Yeah.
And then I'll have the 2 rock squads done. I was looking at, I'm trying to balance like those tedious, long things, which I have to admit, like I'm enjoying painting.
Yeah.
For the first time in a long time, I'm enjoying painting.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of balancing like those longer projects that you see a little less progress, immediate progress.
Yeah.
With then I'll go to a character.
Yeah.
So that I've now completed character. And I was talking to Josh about, what should I do next? Should I do Morvenn Vahl? Should I do the suits? Should I, and he's like, well, what gets you to 1,000 points, like 1,000-point list? And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let me do another sister squad, and then I'll do the next Rhino. And then maybe when I go to do my immolators, I'll do them like both at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. Like, okay, yeah, that's a good point. Like, let me get to 1,000 points, because then I can start playing.
Yeah.
With
then
them.
you have the reward of being able to see them on the table and what they do. And then you get excited about, oh, I can add this, or I think you learn the synergies of your army.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh, if I get this one character that has this effect, then it's exciting because you're building on it.
Which is exactly what happened with my Black Legion. So I really appreciated Josh's like thinking on that. So yeah. So the other thing I did was, because I've been doing so much painting and getting serious about it, like Shell had sent me a link. She's like, oh, look, they have these like paint rack organizers. I'm like, oh yeah. They make them out of MDF and blah, blah. And then she's like, maybe you should like organize your desk a little bit. She called it like my hobgoblin approach to, she meant to say, what did she mean to say? She meant to say like, hodgepodge or whatever. She said hobgoblin.
I like that better.
I liked it better too. I had like a couple mismatched painted racks and blah, 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 and stuff was kind of everywhere. And so I was like, all right. Yeah. So I invested in like 4 different racks that kind of wrap around now. And we got those delivered from Amazon. Then we went ahead and assembled them all. Shell helped me assemble them all. And then we sprayed them all black with black spray paint. Which took a lot more than I would have thought.
MGF eats spray paint. Yeah. There's a lot more in those than you think there is.
Yeah. And so, but we sprayed them all black, and then we set them up, and that with the light that I'd bought, like, is just, the painting area is so nice now.
Yeah.
And it makes such a difference to be organized. Like, it just increases your speed of painting so much.
Yeah. Yeah. When you know exactly where the paint is that you need and which paint it is, and everything's set up where you reach it. And you guys talked about hobby resets a lot.
Yeah.
I do think every once in a while doing a deep one of those really, really helps. Yeah. And sometimes if you're blocked too, you can say, well, I don't know what to do with this model. I'm going to put that one aside, reset, and I'm going to paint something that's more interesting.
And after I complete like a unit, like I put everything away, I clean off the hobby area. Okay, next unit. And then like it, for me, clutter creates anxiety, right? Like, even when my house starts getting cluttered, I'm just like, I got it. And I go into these like manic cleaning frenzies, where Shell knows like nothing's safe. She's like, where's my drink? It was right here. I'm like, it's been cleaned, I'm like, it's done.
Yeah.
So we did all that. We organized the Hobby Progress Challenge, which was a tremendous amount of effort, and then organized the game day at our house, which we'll talk about in Games Played.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Games Played.
Yeah.
I've talked a lot. Why don't you talk about what you did? So our buddy Travis, who you heard on last episode, was going to be in town, and we were like, hey, we should play a game. And I said, well, do you want me to set up like a game day? We have a few people over. He's like, yeah, let's do that. And it kind of exploded. It went from like maybe, 6 people hanging out to like 16 people. 2 people didn't show, so that's great. But we had 6 tables set up in the house.
Yeah.
Fully terrain loaded.
Themed terrain, not just hodgepodge terrain.
Oh no, yeah.
Every terrain was themed. It was good.
Yeah. What was funny was the table that we played on, that Ed and Travis and myself and Shell played on, was like the table that we were like scrambling. We're like, I don't know about this, and we piled stuff, and then we were like, this is actually one of the best looking tables by the time we were done. So yeah, I mean, I played a game with Travis and Ed, and Shell and we played a team game. Shell got to use her Night Lords. I got to use my Black Legion. Ed brought Orcs. This is one of the first games of 40K he's been playing for 10th edition. And Travis brought his Eldar.
Yeah.
And man, what a game. I mean, we were just killing stuff left and right. Now, Shell initially lost a tank in the first round, a Predator. She had 2 Predators out there. And I'm like, yeah, but you got a second Predator. That's why you have redundancy.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, but I want to just shoot with that one. I'm like, yeah, well, that's how it goes. I mean, I would have loved for you to shoot with that one too.
Yeah. At one point, didn't Travis start shooting at the Orcs?
No, he joked about it.
Oh, okay. I thought he was actually rolling for it.
No. But what was funny was, like, as it turned out, like halfway through the game, all of Shell's units were gone. She's like, you just threw me at those things. I'm like, that is not what happened. I'm all, blame them. They shot you. But we made a couple mistakes. We bottlenecked like her her possessed from being able to get into close combat at one point. So they had to kind of run around something and make a big long charge, which they succeeded on. But man, possessed are really great in close combat. Really great in close combat. I think, and here's my big takeaway from that day and that game was Shell has had this huge concern about learning the rules. She wanted to play 10 games with me before she ever played against somebody else or team games with me. She was on point like the whole game, like knew like, okay, yeah, here's what I need to wound. Here's what I need to hit, and there's always, these one-off rules like, well, can I do this? Yeah, you can move this way or move that way. But she knew like what the questions to ask. She knew her basics. And I told her this and she's like, no, you're exaggerating. I'm like, Travis.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you were right there just playing along with us. It wasn't like she was waiting around for us to do stuff. She was on it.
Yeah.
I was stoked, and the funny part was like, it went on a long time. Like,
it was a long game.
Team games go on a long time.
Yeah.
And we weren't exactly hurrying and everybody was kind of, Travis, Ed and Shell were kind of newer. And so like, I think the game went like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
1,000 points each. So 2,000 points per side. Team games take longer because you're talking amongst yourselves and whatnot. But man, like we finished that game and Shell was like, let's play another game. Yeah. I'm like, I'm kind of tired. Like I'm kind of wiped out.
I need a break.
And she wanted to play another game. I was like, oh, you can go play another game. I'm not playing another game. But yeah, I think it really resonated with Shell. The other game I got in, not that day, but earlier was Steve and our friend Jamie came over. Jamie had not played yet. Mm-hmm. Steve is still like fledgling new to the game. Again, like to 10th edition. He's played 40K for years. And so I just helped walk them through like a game, with them playing and me kind of helping them understand, okay, here's your options. Here's what's going on. So yeah, I mean, we had a really good time. And, man, again, like takeaways are, I got to look at their points, but in close combat, possessed are just awesome. Like I'm wondering if you can't stuff them in something like a Land Raider and throw them out at it. Because like Terminators, like they can soak up a lot of damage sometimes, but man, they're just not putting out the punch I need them to put out.
Are Chaos Terminators three wounds? Yep. Same as the
yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But they don't have like equivalent like, oh, we can all equip with Thunder Hammers.
Yeah.
I couldn't even tell you what Thunder Hammers do these days. Like I haven't looked at the Space Marine Codex, but I mean, you can have one take a Power Fist. They have some nice things they can do. They can, when they Dark Pact, they get to reroll all misses.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not using them right. Yeah. I think I am. The problem is they just seem to lack a little bit of punch. So
yeah,
but I love Terminators, so I'm not going to get rid of them. But it would be fun to,
especially the Chaos Terminators with the big tusks and the trophy racks.
I love it. Yeah. But it would be fun to throw some possessed. I got to look and see if I can do that. I'd stuff a Land Raider full of possessed and just shove them down somebody's throat. That'd be amazing. That'd be amazing.
Amazing for you. The other side.
The other problem is possessed don't have. They don't have shooting attacks.
Yeah,
so, it's purely a close combat, but fun unit, and it looked great on the table.
Yeah, they're such good models.
What about you? What have you been playing?
Yeah, so sorry. I mentioned the Old World campaign, so I've played my first game of Old World recently. Also Necromunda, but then I have actually for the first time in about a year also played 40K. So my oldest son is turning 10 and he broke his arm about a month ago. And so I was trying to figure out what do we do during the summer. And I decided, let's get into 40K. You're old enough, like let's play. And so he painted up his Necrons. He actually painted up way quicker than I painted my Space Marines. And we did a combat patrol and prep for the game day, which was super fun and really good, like reminder of all the things I had forgotten because I played 40K for years, but I've only played 2 games of 10th.
Right.
And I find when I play a lot of GW games, it's hard to remember what are the differences. You're like, all right, is this the game where we get the +1? And
they roll into each other.
Yeah. And so, and then like not having combat resolution at the end of a melee, because I've been playing so much fantasy. I'm like, wait, but we just stand there and hit each other again next round. But so that was really cool. And then at your game day, I really wanted to have him play someone else because it's different when you're playing your dad.
Yeah, for sure.
And so Brett, who we're going to talk more about later, was absolutely amazing, and put up with Locke and I for multiple hours. He brought out his crew, which the crew were fantastic, so much fun. And Locke had the best time. Like Locke got destroyed on objectives, but a whole way home he was just talking about how he killed everything but one crew tox. And he borrowed some of my models that I have at the store, and we like built these crazy things. And every time we'd look up a character, we'd be like, oh, this is a really good rule that we forgot. Like the Plasmancer makes criticals on 5. We didn't even know what that was before the game.
Right.
And so, we're looking through it and we figure it out. And then we introduced stratagems. So we got to do the shenanigans. Like his Scorpec destroyers charged in, and we didn't have anybody there to help them with their feel no pain or reanimator protocols. Mm-hmm. So it got down to the point where one Scorpec destroyer had 1 wound left, failed his armor save. We command re-rolled it because Brett was a gem and told us what that was.
Yeah.
And
he knew it was just a learning thing. I gotta say, Brett was like infinitely patient.
Oh my gosh.
And so nice.
So good. Yeah. And he, it's that thing where when someone first comes, you don't play hardcore, right?
Right.
He charged with things he shouldn't have charged.
He was just like, so you can see what happens.
Yeah. And it was great. And Locke had such a good time. We just watch Inside Out. It's one of those core memories that Locke's going to have, coming in gaming. And listen, it was really cool.
Here's what I'd say about your 9, almost 10-year-old. And I'm not even joking. And this is not me just shining you on. I have played a lot of kids. At tournaments, I talked about this. At tournaments, I've got rocked up and, here's a 13-year-old. And there's no winning.
Yeah.
Like, if you win against a 13-year-old, so you beat up a kid, huh?
Yeah.
And if you lose against a 13-year-old, so you got beat by a kid, huh? And a lot of times, like, they get there and they're not understanding really the whole thing. And you don't want to take advantage of that, but you're trying to teach them. And then I have talked myself into ties and losses so many times,
right?
Because I'm just trying to help them out. And I mean, at 13, there's a lot to learn in this game.
Yeah,
Locke is so freaking smart, dude. You have kids that are so smart.
Yeah,
Locke is like, no pun intended, but like locking into the rules right away, and then he's telling you, this is what this does, and this is what that does. He is on it.
Yeah.
Like here's, and I'll just for the audience, like here's an example. We ordered a ton of pizza. The pizza all arrives. Locke's in the kitchen. I'm like, hey, what's up? And he goes, I don't eat pizza that has vegetables or fungi on it. and I go, well, you're not a fun guy. And he, without skipping a beat, goes, I'm very serious all the time. Like that. Like he is so above his level. He's got to be reading it like a super high level.
Yeah.
Like there, and I'll bet he's on it in math too. Like I have no doubt. Like he was a joy to have around, and he was just sharp as a tack and just fun, like joking and everything. Like I couldn't believe he was only 10.
Yeah. And that was really cool for me as well, right? Because you worry about bringing your kid into a space,
course.
And you worry not only for your kid, but you worry for everyone else. Like I wanted Brett to have a good time,
sure,
and because he took
a day, thanking him,
because I really, really was grateful, right? Because like I'm a very project based learner, like in work and real life and stuff. So like I can read a rule book, but just play me.
Agreed.
I'll do it wrong and I'll know it better for next time.
100%. I'm the same way.
And so like to have someone that's willing to do that with me and my son was great. And Locke is fantastic. It was really cool. I've always wanted to do that, like I remember I met Graham McNeil years ago at Adepticon, and he said he'd finally taken his 4-year-old to Games Workshop to roll dice for the first time.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that for years. Like we did Kill Team a couple years ago. I let them roll the dice, but they needed to be at a level where it needed to be an enjoyable experience. It wasn't babysitting with Warhammer involved.
Right.
And so that was really cool. And I learned a ton. I actually had a really good time. And the last couple times with 40K have been a little bit mixed.
Yeah.
And I had a really fun time. And it's to a level, and it was cool to be able to, like, he knows the basics. I don't have to keep on telling him what a 3+ is.
Right.
Then we got to talk about, all right, here are your 2 tactical decisions.
Right, because then he's making decisions between the things. And it was a very interesting experience. Like, it was, we had my friend, his son Mason. Come on, Mason is like super into Tyranids, and a lot of people donated Tyranids to him. Honestly, I haven't seen Mason in a while. I don't know if he's playing anymore. I kind of doubt it at this point.
Yeah.
He's like got involved in football and all this stuff, and now he's in high school.
Yeah.
So, you know, Warhammer's probably taking the back seat for a while. I've almost gone, hey, isn't that Tyranid stuff? Like, but even playing Mason, as enjoyable as it was, like getting somebody into it, like it was a totally different experience with Locke. Like, I'm telling you, like it was, I'd play Locke. I'd happily play Locke in the game.
He was super excited when Shell said, like, hey, we're going to come up and we'll do a team battle with you and your dad.
Yeah,
and,
that'd be amazing.
You know, that's really cool for me as well, right? Because the other thing is Warhammer takes a lot of time away from your loved ones.
Yes.
And so then opportunities to do that with your loved ones, where it's not babysitting my son while I play Warhammer. It's us enjoying it. Yeah. And him being at the level where he can play with other people is really cool for me.
He's your oldest, right?
He's my oldest, yeah.
Yeah.
Jasper really likes to roll, but he
hasn't quite grasped it yet. Yeah.
And Willow, don't let her touch your models yet. No. You don't know where they'll end up.
No. They'll end up in separate things. She likes to separate things.
And Bejeweled, maybe.
She is hysterical. You got a great family, man.
Thank you.
So you did the Combat Patrol learning, or excuse me, 1,000-point intro game. With Kroot.
Yeah, cool. and I have to say, Kroot are really cool.
Yeah, it's neat.
Yeah, I've always loved Kroot. When I was a kid, my buddy had the original Kroot Hound. I just loved that model, and I was really excited when the Tau came out as like a full army is playable at Kroot, and the army rules for it are really cool.
Yeah,
and they're really like they're simple to understand, right? You've got like stealth, you've got +1 if they're below 25% or below whatever, and the characters in there.
Once you start coupling them with the Tau, though, then I get like Tau fatigue. Like I'm like, okay, wait, no, what?
Reroll everything.
Okay, cool, do it. You know. That being said, like Brett was so funny. It's not even funny. Like I actually appreciate it. He's like, you know, our Legends unit's okay. I'm like, yeah, dude, bring whatever you want. I'm like, bring whatever you want, man. We're super casual about it. Like just. Come on and have a good time.
The great Narlock, the giant, and Locke was so excited when he gossed it to death. It was like, you know, he's like, yeah, we killed the dinosaur. We were getting destroyed on that flank, but he was so happy. It was awesome. And those models hold up. Like they're still gorgeous. You look at them and I, you know, if I didn't know it was Forge World resin and 20 years old, I would think I think it just came out with the set.
Yep.
So it's cool that the consistency in the models is really cool.
Yeah, so. It's a neat army.
Yeah.
It's a neat army. All right. Well, let's do this. Let's take a short break. Then we'll come back and we'll start talking about our main topic of the show. But thanks again for joining me.
Yeah,
today.
Absolutely.
All right. Be right back. All right, and we're back. And let's launch into the main topic of our show here, Sky. So again, you know, the title of the show, From Rivalry to Respect, it's really about fostering a positive game environment, whether that's in your home or your club or, you know, your garage or your game store in this case. And then, you know, we'll go on from there on a few thoughts we have around this. But the first thing I wanted to do is kind of talk about, you know, what is a gaming community? And, you know, so going around the internet, like I found kind of a definition that was a gaming community is a group of people who come together to share their love for playing games. It can include players from all around the world or just those in your local area. Typically in Warhammer, it's people in your local area because it requires you to have direct involvement as opposed to like a video game community where you could be located wherever. The purpose of a gaming community is to provide support and camaraderie among gamers, as well as offer advice on how to improve at certain games. There's a broader 40K community. And this is the one exception I'll say. Like, there's almost like categories, right? Like you have Warhammer Community, the website.
Yep.
And so Games Workshop, I mean, I'm sure they look at their customers as their community.
Yep.
They have community managers now, which I remember we had community managers at Yahoo, right? That would go in and respond to various things and take information from what they were seeing and then provide it kind of up the chain so people could get ideas or see where problems were occurring.
Yeah.
So I'm sure, like if we look at community, we're all a part of the Warhammer community.
Yeah.
There are elements of this community that I think are problematic.
Yeah.
For sure.
Definitely.
I just stumbled across some online, and it's typically online.
Yeah.
Like it's typically that you see it online. It's rare that I got to tell you, I've never come across somebody in person. That's not to say that they don't exist and don't show up, that has delivered like some kind of racist manifesto or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Somebody that's like actively, I feel, trying to destroy a community, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and I bet they don't see it that way, but my take on it is that harmful.
Yeah. People tend to be a lot braver behind a computer screen, or stupider behind a computer screen.
Sure.
There's
an anonymity factor.
Yeah. And so they tend to, and sometimes I think those communities scream the loudest, even though they're a minority.
I 100% agree that they are a very small minority.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is when you see people jumping on that bandwagon of those heralds of negativity, and I'm not talking about like just criticism of Games Workshop models or policies or art or whatever. I mean, that's all subject to interpretation, a lot of, especially artwork, right? But anyway.
It's a good example is when before a book even comes out and people get one rule and everyone's like, oh, the army's dead.
It's terrible.
It drives me nuts every time. I'm like, guys, just wait a week.
You can't look at those rules in isolation. You have to look at the entire thing.
Yeah. And then those groups, the Facebook groups that is focused on that, tend to like fall apart, like crying until it comes out. And then they're like, oh, it actually wasn't that big of a deal.
The minute they nerfed Warp Talons, and I knew they were going to nerf it, like there was no way.
Yeah.
They jump in, they attack you, and then jump out before you get to.
Yeah.
It's like there's no way they're keeping this. And then people buy a bunch of Warp Talons. They're like, I just, they changed it. Now you have to wipe the whole unit. I'm like, of course they did.
Yeah.
Of course they did. You meta chasing knucklehead.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Like, and they're like, oh, they're just worthless now. Are they?
Yeah.
I mean,
they're just not an auto include.
They're just not an auto include.
But you already bought them. Just paint them up. And
I'm over here talking about using possess, for God's sake. Who cares?
Yeah.
But again, when you get so focused on just winning,
right?
Like, and that's what's so interesting is like a lot of the online communities is so focused on like winning. Like, and like I'll see people post like, here, what do you think of my list? I'm like, how do you think you're going to use this? Like, tell me what you think you're going to do with this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what you're going to do with all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to have these things in this Land Raider. We're going to move up this, well, okay.
Yeah.
Right, cool.
I like the definition you have here because it doesn't mention the game.
No, it's agnostic, right?
And it's interesting at my store. I'll have people come in a lot, and my store is a little weird because we're 90% online. We're only open 2 days a week, which are the days when I want to go game. And so we have people come in.
You're only physically open 2 days a week.
Yeah.
You are shipping stuff all the time.
Yeah, all the time. Actually, like just last week, I had this aunt come in with her nephew who was visiting, and he really wanted to play D&D, and the GM had COVID, so they canceled that day.
Okay.
So he actually watched Locke and I play. And she didn't know anything about gaming. So I talked to her about gaming, and I said, one of the cool things that I like about D&D is that there's no starting cost, but the thing you need for D&D is the most important thing in gaming in general, which is good people to play with, and nothing else matters. And
more so even than Warhammer 40,000, D&D is the requirement is everybody's on the same sheet.
Yeah.
Same sheet.
And you have to be at the same level of immersion. Like, are we gonna wear costumes? Are we gonna do voices? Like, you know, and there's different layers to it. And so I told her, like, that's why D&D is really interesting, because anybody can play it. You don't even need dice or models, right? You can just talk in a story as long as you have this shared, you know, rule set.
Yeah.
And there's like Warhammer, you still need good people, but you've got the models, you've got the rule set. So it's more on the prescriptive side.
There's much more investment. Too, yeah.
So that was interesting. I talk about that a lot at the community, at my store, when I'm introducing people to gaming and how to do it and what levels they're at and meeting them where they are, type of idea.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, I realized I went off book, right? We have notes, we have them in order, blah, blah, blah. But like, it was interesting to me just now that as I started talking community, I immediately launched into, and then you have this negative component to a community. Mm-hmm. And I think that's because it eats me alive.
Yeah.
Right? It really eats me alive. The independent characters community is so positive. And we've actually gotten some flack about it. That like, oh, you can't say anything negative about Games Workshop. You absolutely can. You absolutely can. The thing I ask is that you're respectful about it.
Yeah.
And that you're suggestive about it, meaning you're not just saying, oh, they suck, I hate them, I'm ranting about them. Right. I don't care about your rant. I really don't. But if you have ideas, oh, you know, it would be cool to see them do this, or it would be great to see them do that, or I'd like to see this as opposed to what they've done.
Yeah.
Fine. You know, we're the wrong place to really tell you that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, tell Games Workshop.
Yeah.
But I'm not muzzling that. I feel like there are some key components to a healthy community. Mm-hmm. And one of those is respect.
Yeah.
And that's respect for each other, respect for yourself, and respect for the people that are providing the game for us to work on. And if you don't have that, if you're like, I hate the people that are making this game, why are you playing it?
Yeah.
Well, because I like it and it's the only game in town, or blah, blah, blah. Then, you know, I don't know what to tell you, man.
Build a different game. Like, if you play it, they will come.
Writing. Yeah. Okay. I love how people are super critical of rules writing. I'm like, why don't you write it?
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to write rules.
Yeah.
It is. And now, mind you, these people are paid to do it, and they should be doing it well. And sometimes I read a rule and I'm like, why is this written this way? Okay. You know, like we were talking about earlier in the show, I have a difficult time reading a rule book and then going, yep, let's play it.
Right.
You walk me through it a round or two and I'm like, got it.
Yeah.
You know, Josh, when we play a board game, will explain all the rules to everybody. Yeah. I'm like, cool. Can we just play it?
Yeah. I'm going to do it wrong for the first 50% of the game. And I'm going to go, oh,
what I'm going to do is copy what you do. And then go, oh, until I get it.
Yeah.
I'll lose my first game. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, after that, it's when it really gets enjoyable.
Yeah. I think the respect piece is probably the most vital piece of it, you know, and there's a lot of different levels of respect. And I was actually just having this conversation with my mom, who's visiting right now. My view on anytime people are volunteering or just doing something nice, even if they're getting paid for it, is if I have an opinion on it, I get to express it when that opinion actually makes me do something.
Yes.
Like if you're volunteering to do something for me, I don't have the right to then say you're doing it wrong unless I'm willing to go do it the way I want it done. Mm-hmm. And so up to that point, it's you're doing this so you get to decide, right? And for me, I think because we live in this little tiny community up in the hills.
Yeah, it's a very small community.
People will post on Facebook like, we should repaint the entire town and clean it all up.
You're going to go down there and do that?
Yeah, so I called them out. I said, I will accept anyone who wants to come paint my store, and not a single person. Like, they just cricket. And that's what happens, right? People are like, people think expressing an idea is the same as making change. And so in the community,
that's interesting.
When you have people organizing, like there's respect for them. There's respect of the space, you know, respecting your home, your friend's house, their terrain, their models, the store.
The cost of pizza.
Yeah. Don't be the guy that doesn't give the $10 for pizza.
Right.
When you say you're going to go, show up, right? Because you have a respect for your opponent.
Yep.
Like don't be the guy that always calls out last minute, because then people won't want to play you anymore.
That's right.
And just be respectful. And if you think something should change, if it's to the point or you feel really strongly about it, then get involved. Is that's my opinion on the respect. And I think if you have that and you realize that like the game doesn't matter as much as who you're playing with, and if you respect them and you want to be friends.
Well, and that was Brett's point coming here. He was like, I didn't really care about getting a game in so much as I just wanted to socialize with the group and get to know them.
Yeah, which is great because he played Lock-in.
Right, but I had never, you know, I played Brett down at the Guild House in San Jose. But I had, you know, I invited him over here because I thought, you know, he will probably fit in well with a lot of the people that we play with.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was amazed at all the terrain and stuff. And I'm like, I told you I could feel, you know, but I am not the average 40K player. And that's what I try to express to a lot of our group too, is like, this is not the norm.
Yeah.
Like I saw somebody made a post on Reddit today and they're like, oh my God, those are Forge World city tiles. Like those are out of print, blah, blah. I'm like, I got a garage full of you know, it's like we are not the norm. But that being said, I agree with every point you just made about respect and about saying, if you're willing to do it yourself. This is why when people would complain about the way tournaments were organized or events were run, I'm like, well, then you run it.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a well, then fine, you run it tone. Right. I mean that do it how you want it done.
Yeah.
That's what the guys that used to run the Grand Wa, you know, they didn't like the super competition stuff. They were like, hey, we want to have this kind of cool thing. Yeah. We're going to run it ourselves.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's awesome. Yeah. And I didn't mean it to come off that way if you did either.
No.
And I fully support it. At my store, people will be like, hey, we should really do a campaign. I'm like, I would love to. I have a full-time job and a store and 3 kids. I can provide the space.
All you got to do is run it.
All you have to do is organize it, and people will come. And the people that organize it get to set the rules of the campaign, right? And so, and it's
you think
really
I'm going to
cool.
complain about Josh's campaign?
No.
Are you kidding? Thank you so much for running it.
Thank you that I get to just show up, and there's terrain and people to play that I enjoy playing games with.
Yeah.
And I get to learn a new game and paint cool models. Like that's the piece for me.
So let's jump to support. Like you have respect, but support as well.
Yeah.
Because, and the reason I jump to that one from the next point I have is because when Josh is setting up that campaign, like everybody leaned in to help other than read the instructions. Josh.
Sorry, Josh.
Watch the videos he made. I feel so bad. Because then when I looked at the videos, I'm like, oh man, these are really cool. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
Sorry, Josh.
But like, hey, we need more terrain. Well, I've got terrain. I'll, here, Josh, take this terrain. I'll bring some up. We'll do whatever we got to do, to get that. Oh, I got all the scatter terrain as well. We can use that.
Yeah.
Like everybody brought something to assist.
Yeah.
I think some people brought like bagels or donuts or something, for breakfast. I mean, everybody's chipping in.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And then, and then you're not, the other thing that you get there is then you're lifting the weight for the person that did a lot of it.
Correct.
Right. And you're showing your appreciation for them.
And you don't have to do it every time.
Yeah. But it's like that social contract, right? That you have in a group, right? You're all going to help. No one, don't just be a taker.
Right.
It's sometimes you'll be a taker, sometimes you'll be a giver. But if you have a good group and you like each other, then it rotates.
Yeah, for sure.
And that to me builds a healthy, respectful, supportive group.
Right. And then the next point I want to talk about was inclusivity.
Yes.
And this is so important to me. And I come from a position of, I have family members that are transgender. I have family members that are gay.
Yeah.
I have, I have a very large family. So I have, the spectrum of everything in it. And I love it.
Yeah.
I love that I was, and I consider myself lucky for being born and raised in the Bay Area, California, where there really is like it's its own microcosm. It's very different than any location I've ever been in. Everybody is welcome. Of course, it's silly to say things like I don't see color or I don't see. It doesn't matter to me. We have friends in this group that are Asian, Indian, Hispanic, And
just don't be an asshole. That's the only.
Yeah, just don't be a jerk, right? And it's so important to me that everybody feel comfortable.
Yeah.
In the environment, and if something in there makes you uncomfortable, we'll talk about how you kind of go about addressing it. But it's important to feel, like you have a Cheers environment, to go way back to my 80s, references, that like there's a place where you can go and be comfortable and people know you, and maybe you don't know everybody, but you can generate enough confidence that you can introduce yourselves to those folks and play a game and understand that, maybe I didn't enjoy playing the game with this person, and I don't necessarily have to again, or, I can even have a conversation about what I didn't really enjoy about that game.
Yeah.
But I think that's super important. So I think in any community, you have to have kind of a key set of rules and understanding about what the mission of that community is. And that can be something from straightforward. That could be something from the top, like Games Workshop's, everybody, Warhammer's for everybody statement.
Yeah.
Which I know that like there's a lot of people out there, or I would say there's a few people out there that like to make fun of that statement. Those are the people that statement is directed to.
Right.
Because I saw that statement and I was like, I agree with everything in this.
Me too.
I don't believe it's just like some virtue signaling, message. I think they were like, listen, stop being a jerk.
Yeah.
Like that's all we're asking.
Yeah.
To take Faultline 40K's, kind of message of, we have fully painted models on the table. We play narrative games. We're not highly competitive. That's not to say you can't play competitive games there. If you want to like get ready for a tournament or something, just let your opponent know that, hey, you throw it out like me. I'm looking for somebody to crush me.
Yeah.
My buddy Todd, the owner of Table War, right? He just played. Called me before you came over, and he was talking about how he just played his first game against Sisters. He's like, oh my gosh, they wrecked me. Like, he was just like, this is what was happening and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow. And he goes, but I asked him to bring a Tough Sisters list because he's going up to Washington, where next I'm going to be. Yeah. But he's also going to go to Nova and play. And he's like, I want the experience.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you and Doug play a different game than I do.
Yeah.
Like, that's cool. But
yeah, my old gaming group from where I used to work, they're very competitive. Mm-hmm. And they like chess clock, they prepare each other for like LVO and Kubla Khan. It's not for me, but that's what they have their own norms. And I was like, hey, these norms don't apply to me. So like, I'm going to be in here. You guys are all my friends. I would stick out and not have fun in that gaming group. And so like having the awareness, like they set this, we are a competitive gaming group who wants to do competitive gaming. I was like, that's awesome.
And but knowing that, well, this is probably not the group for me to go play at.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And when going back to that inclusivity point, inclusivity doesn't mean we change our mission to support your one, thing.
Yeah.
It's inclusivity is, hey, here's our mission statement. So everybody understands what they're after. If that's not for you, that's okay. Yeah. There's plenty of groups out there that are for you. And this is what I tell people when they complain about, we heavily moderate the Intimate Characters Facebook group.
Yeah.
I'm like, and if you don't like it, there's plenty of other groups out there where you can rant and rave and do whatever you want. Like, there's different things that make people happy. This is what makes our tight-knit group happy.
Yeah, and I think there's from the store perspective, so on the inclusivity part, it was really important to me to be very inclusive as a store. Like, there's really no reason for me to have people in our store. Like, realistically, I live in the middle of nowhere. Like, I'm opening it because I like to game and because I want it to be a space where people can come chill. Because the gaming community and fantasy in general tends to have, like, we collect the people who might not have felt representative or fit in other places. Right?
Yes.
And so, like, it was really, there's been a couple.
That's why we go live in other worlds.
Yeah, because this one's sometimes suck. So let's go play in the fantasy world. So that was really important to me. So like, there's a lot of things you can do, like marking your business as LGBTQ friendly and a trans safe environment.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And so I made sure to check all of those. And we have a lot of folks, a lot more diversity than we should from where I live that come in the store. And it means a lot to me. One of them came to me and told me that they were transitioning, and when we opened our new store, they brought me a bottle of champagne. I don't even drink, but it was so touching,
right?
That I was able to provide that space for them to hang out with their friends, and we don't actually game because they play mainly Magic,
right?
And I've helped them a little bit with painting and stuff, but there's that gaming group that I felt I didn't want to be a part of was not because they excluded me. Right. I said I didn't want to be here.
Self-exclusion.
Yeah, because I didn't want to play that game.
Right.
And I think from a store perspective, my goal is to make sure that no one's being weird around women, no one's making stupid comments. No, it's a safe place for kids to hang out.
Yeah.
Like all of those things.
And I remember I was upstairs in game one time, we were playing a game and I let go with like a couple F-bombs. I know people are always shocked when I swear because I never really swear on the show.
Yeah.
And Anthony, who was one of the store owners, was downstairs. He's like, "Hey, this is a store." I'm like, "Oh my gosh." I go, "I'm so sorry." I was so comfortable in the environment.
Yeah.
In the gaming and stuff, like I lost the perspective that I was in a store. So now I'm always very, very much aware of where I am.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Cause like at the store, I've got that extra layer on it. But, and it's cool because our store, like I don't even have a sign on the outside of my building. Like to know our store exists means you're already sort of in the club, quote unquote. And so we're able to keep out.
You don't have foot traffic passing by your store.
Yeah. So
it's tucked away in a small mountain community.
And so to find out about it, you have to either find us through, this or word of mouth or something. And so the people that come are people that I greet every person. I introduce them from someone in the store and we make sure that they're not going to be creepy or weird or make anybody feel uncomfortable. Right.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, it's interesting. And that's been something that I was not expecting when I started the store.
Yeah.
That aspect being really meaningful to myself and my wife, to being able to build the community and
who also
provide
games,
that
by
space.
the way. So
she games. She's so much better than me. I can't let her play Warhammer. Otherwise I'll never win a game in my life.
She is.
So
she's brutal.
I just leave her to
games. She's brutal.
I don't know how, but
her and Shell both go ahead.
She turned abduction into an attack last night. She kept stealing all my green ducks. I don't know how she did that, but anyway.
So okay. So you have your mission statement for your community, right? And that sounds so formal, but I mean, it can really just kind of be like, here's what we're about.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, like, I would likely, I remember when Reese and Frankie and those guys had like their Frontline Gaming store up north, but also when they moved down to Southern California, they had the store. That's probably not the environment for me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, like you said, I'm not going to get the game that I enjoy, and they're going to not, unless they like kicking a puppy,
right?
They're not going to enjoy the game against me. A lot of times Doug Johnson will be like, "Hey, we should play a game." I'm like, "Why don't we just say I lost and have a beer?"
Save some time.
Like, we're really playing two different games here.
Yeah.
So I think, so you have kind of a set of rules and understanding about what your objective is. That requires administration.
Yeah.
Right? Like that requires people who are leaders, whether they're official leaders or just like kind of community leaders, who kind of understand like this is what we're trying to go for, and are willing to step in the way of the negativity or the criticism and say, "Listen, here's my response to that is calm and measured, and this is what we're about. And if that's not for you, that's okay. There are plenty of places out there that are for you."
Yeah.
And we have folks who have administrated our online community for the independent characters for years. Loopy, Adon, myself being the main three. And, there will be sometimes it has rarely been the case where we've had to kick somebody from the group. I think maybe like 2 times in the entire time.
That's awesome.
And that takes a lot of effort to get. Yeah. And we had lots of discussion about what should we do about this guy? And then we talk to the person and be like, "Listen, here's here's what the community's after. If you have a problem, and based on their response to that, we would know, listen, okay, this is not working out for you or I. We're both going to probably be happier if you're somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, in one case, one person was super vindictive about it, right? Like got kicked from the community, went and left bad reviews on iTunes, went and left bad reviews here. It's just like, okay, but you were the cause of this.
Right.
Like,
right.
The rest of us all in this community seem to be on the same page.
Right.
Nobody's going to be upset that we kicked you out of this community. Right. And that's the important thing to keep in perspective.
Yeah.
As a store owner, that's probably got to be a lot harder, especially like you probably at this point, as you said, you're running such a unique store in the way that like there's not a lot of foot traffic. But having somebody telling somebody, a customer, listen, you're not welcome in our store anymore. That's kind of the final straw. I mean,
yeah. I luckily have not had to do that.
Yeah.
I'm in a couple of store owner groups online, and people talk a lot about what comes up, right? Because you do have foot traffic, you don't have the ability to just shut your front door and say you're not welcome.
Sure.
And so being aware, you can
lock it, but then you're going to go out of business, right? Yeah,
you have to be just a lot more aware, and you probably have to be a little bit more. There are people that come to our store very regularly that I would not allow into my home to game.
Interesting point,
right? And that's fine. Because they have their part and they're respectful. They play a different type of game, or they just play different games than I do. Cause I'm a game store, right? Not everyone plays the same ones I do. And so establishing those norms is interesting, but at my store, I think it relies on, we have a couple sort of like pillars, of really good people that I trust, that it's just a feeling like you just,
sure.
You just go in and people are kind to one another. Like we are very open to allowing new people to play and teaching new people to play and just attracting that. But there's a lot of things that go into that from a store owner perspective in terms of, I mean, just as basic as like liability, right? But also, there's stores that have a lot of questions about, do you allow people to drink? Do they bring their own, right? That's different than in your home. And,
because some people can't handle that.
Yeah.
Right?
Some people can't handle that in public. And then you have a liability to your other customers. Right. And so there's a lot of stuff that goes in there, and it's complex. And I think you have to be really aware of it. But if you're able to get a critical mass of good people, they sort of help monitor that and make you aware of things that could be an issue. And you can be aware of it as well. And sometimes you just swallow it, right? You have to think, is this a big enough deal, right? This person, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily have this person in my home,
right?
But in the community,
or I may not enjoy playing a game against them, but they're not actively disruptive,
right?
Or
they're not, and they're not a bad person, right? They're not doing things that I think are wrong, or they're not hurting anybody. And so from my perspective, especially, I say, well, I want you to still feel welcome, right? But helping them, sometimes you have to talk to them about norms of things like that, but yeah, it's a path that you have to walk on, and is not clear cut in any way, shape, or means.
Yeah. I think it's important too. Again, this is my community. It's that we are protecting people who are different from us necessarily.
Right.
Whether that is minorities, whether that is, juveniles, younger, newer gamers, people from all different walks of life. It's important that you have leaders that are willing to step up and say, hey, these people are just people.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I was talking to somebody recently about, I don't remember who I was telling, but it was like an Army story. And I was talking about how in basic training, I went at the time, this is back in the late 80s, military police training was at Fort McClellan, Alabama. I'm from Bay Area of California. But the people that I was then sharing a bay with were not from necessarily Alabama. They were from all across the country.
Yeah.
And so you got to see a wide diverse, for me, some of the first time, a wide diverse of opinions and attitudes that some were not conducive to teamwork.
Yeah.
Or camaraderie. And so, I mean, that gets beaten out of you kind of in the Army, not literally, but you get broken down and kind of brought back up. But the Army doesn't tolerate, well, in theory, doesn't tolerate that kind of thing. And so they have structure and rules, and you don't speak like this and you don't say these things. And if you do, there is repercussions to it.
Yeah.
Now, again, that's the military, right? But it was just an interesting experience for me for the first time, kind of as an 18-year-old, being kind of tossed into a wide, diverse area.
Yeah.
I remember coming back to the United States on leave one time, I'm not going to throw out the state because I just don't want to, but I went to a state with what is now my ex-wife, and walking around the mall, there was nothing but white people.
Mm-hmm.
In the Bay Area, California, that is never, ever. I can't walk across the street. My neighbors are not, it's just, we are incredible diverse environment. And I remember walking through the mall and not realizing it at first, and then seeing one African-American guy and being like, whoa, like, wow.
Yeah.
And I felt like, wow, what must he feel like, in this environment? I almost wanted to be like, I'm not with these guys, dude. I'm different, but I'm not, you know? And so it's just an interesting,
I
don't know where I'm going with that, so to speak, but so much as I'm just saying, you have to be willing to step up and step in the way of these people. And it does take a bit of fortitude.
Yeah. My wife is born in the Bay Area. She's half Taiwanese. Mm-hmm. I grew up in rural Virginia. So when we go home, she sticks out like a sore thumb. And one time she went to the grocery store and she was wearing this like puffy coat with fur. I just make fun of her nonstop because she looked like a Siberian princess, and she bought every strand of broccoli in the place because there was like 3 aisles of chicken fingers. And she talks about it all the time. And I think that is, I think the way that applies to this, right, is a lot of people get really nervous going into new environments.
Sure.
I remember the first time you invited me over and I was so nervous. First of all, I knew that it was like a tryout, right? Like if I screwed up, if I, all you had
to do was be yourself though.
Right. But I was like, I really, these people are awesome. I really want to fit in.
Be a part of it.
Yeah. And I want to return the energy that you guys are giving. And I also wanted to make sure that it would fit, right? Like I didn't know.
Yeah.
And, in a gaming community,
well, you must know we hate you.
Well, I know you guys just keep inviting me because Jade's so awesome, right? Like, It's all right. I tell her that all the time. I say, I definitely married up.
Just so you know, like, we'll be playing board games. And Sky likes to look at, like, every permutation, like, what he can do. And I'll text his wife, who will be at home. I'll be like, can you tell your husband to hurry up and make a decision?
And even now, if I take a turn faster than you guys, she still gets
it's just an ongoing joke, yeah.
But in a gaming community, you really need to be aware of those instances when there's only one of someone in a room, or a new person, or someone who's nervous. Mm-hmm. And the really healthy gaming communities that I've seen have someone who's unabashedly afraid to go up and say, like, hey, can I help you? Right? Like, there's a couple people in my store that when someone says, hey, I'm interested in 40K, I can't talk to everybody, right? I need to be there to be able to help people check out and stuff.
Yeah, of course.
But I say, hey, here's Steve. Here's someone. They play 40K. They'll talk to you, and they're good, right? They'll just by talking to them, you'll understand what the norms of the store are.
They're kind of, Don and I had a word for that. They're kind of like community champions.
Yeah.
And game system champions, like, or evangelists, right?
Yeah.
Like,
ambassadors.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. And even this is just at a store, but in other communities you have that as well. Like there's a fantasy community within my store, and there's really 2 people there that have kept it going for 15 years. and they really do serve as gatekeepers, not in a bad way, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're making, there's a couple times when the conversation went off the rail on politics and they just brought it back and we're like, hey, this is a place for square basis.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about what's happening in, Europe or whatever. And
America.
Yeah. And then in those instances, the people who felt the need to bring that into the environment sort of self-censor them out because they know this isn't that place. We're talking about Warhammer. We're talking about elves and dwarves. Right. And so it's really useful.
I have to tell you, like, the impact of a positive community on the people in it can be tremendous.
Yeah.
Like it can be something as strong as they have had and I'll talk about some like letters that I've received from our listeners who have just been like, listening to your show and being a part of the community helped me through this very difficult time, whether it was their personal medical issue or the medical issue or death of a relative or spouse or something like that. Like just having a place where they felt like I can disconnect from other things and be a part of this and listen to my game or play my game or what have you. We have had, I could count on my fingers and toes and not have enough. The number of times I've received letters from people who have said, hey, this really helped me through a difficult time, or at its extreme, I was thinking of taking my life, and just, your ongoing positivity and the community was really helpful. And I never would have known, the person wasn't out there saying this. It was just because they had a place that was cheering them on, and hey, you painted this thing that looks great. I mean, it sounds stupid, but it's not stupid. It's really can have an impact. I have very much enjoyed going to the Fault Line 40K stuff. Met Brett there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Who, after that day, I was like, Brett, anytime you want to play an off Thursday game or something, you're welcome to come over. You don't live that far away. We can play here. It's fine. Most of my game playing is here typically. Mm-hmm. But expanding your friends group, but I've enjoyed being able to step away from home, especially as I've gone through unemployment. I just spend a lot of time at home.
Yeah.
Literally today, Shell and I were talking about getting lunch, and she's like, "Oh, let's go. Should we get burritos from this place?" And I'm like, "Let's go there and eat." I just want to get out of the house.
Yeah.
So having a place to go, meet people, talk 40K, have a drink, goof off, and then come home has been really nice.
Yeah. That's been my experience as well. I was unemployed for 2 days less than a year.
Yeah.
And Thursday nights was game night at my store. And it was one of the only times I got out of the house.
Away from your house.
And put down a phone. I wasn't an unemployed dude there, right?
You own the store.
I was rolling. Yeah, I own the store. Yeah. Don't start a game store if you actually need money, right?
Good way to make $1 million. Start with 2 million and open a game store.
Yeah. That's a good one. But it was really, really important for my mental health.
Yeah.
And there were weeks where it just sucked.
Looking for work is absolutely
it's
soul crushing.
It's horrible. Yeah. Getting rejected and doing an interview and so sometimes I was so tired, I would just show up and I would just hang out with people, but I wasn't looking at my phone. I was chatting about things that I loved, but things that didn't really matter, and just hanging out with good people. And it really had a huge impact. Like that year, I would call it was a mental health sabbatical that I didn't know I needed.
Yeah.
And
I think this is important in any kind of thing where you can step away.
Yeah.
Whether it's 40K, whether it's working on your car, whether it's
any hobby or anything.
I think you need to have kind of an outlet. Everybody I think needs it. And when I hear of guys who are like, oh, well, my spouse or my girlfriend or whatever doesn't really support 40K, as opposed to there's one thing to say, I'm not interested in it, go have fun.
Right.
It's another thing to actively be against it. And I inevitably go, what's their hobby? Oh, they don't really have one. Yeah, that's your problem right there. They need to have a life of their own. Yeah. Shell has things she likes to do off on her own. And then we kind of come back together and we're like, oh, what'd you do? I did this, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah, Jade Jade is so long suffering, but has been immensely supportive, especially as she saw that during the year. Like I joke that it's like my grandpa had bowling night, and that's how I describe it to people who don't game. Like it's my weekly bowling night with my friends.
Right.
And then they get it, right? Yeah. It's about hanging out with people. And to go back to positive game experience, if the gaming community sucked, well, one, I'd be the one to blame because it's my store. But if it sucked, it would have been a completely different experience, right?
Sure.
Like
absolutely.
during that year, I'd been like, this is not worth my mental health, right? And we probably would have shut it down. Like it's not worth it,
Yeah.
And so just being able to build that and provide that to yourself and to other people.
Yeah.
Super important.
So I was going to go through this next section about like identifying negative behaviors, but I think that's kind of irrelevant. Like we've kind of talked a little bit about it. Like you're looking, people who are lying, people who cheat, those kinds of things. Look, there's a whole list of those.
Yeah.
We don't need to go down that.
I think from a store perspective, just one thing to add, and something we talked about at the break was with my son again, teaching him the norms of a gaming table.
So yeah, that's around like what are how do you promote positive things? And you're hitting on one right here.
Yeah. And so like, I think we all, don't touch other people's models, right? How many times
without asking
has a Cheeto eating 8-year-old come up and drop that thing and you're just like,
I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. And their mom's there and they just run. You're like, yeah, that was a good idea. Right. So like encouraging those and also being aware that people don't know those norms, right? It's a new space. You don't freak out. You don't cuss them out. You don't get really mad. These are the norms of the store, right? Rolling your dice where the person can see, not having dice where every single thing is a different symbol. You're pulling out all of those things right? Like, can I read? There's a kid at my store who we had to talk to about, not talk in a bad way, but be like, hey, nobody can understand what you're rolling because your dice are like these crazy things that you love, but they're all in like Japanese or something.
Yeah, that's cool and all.
Yeah, but like the respect your opponent enough to like, they don't think you're cheating, but they don't want to have the mental load that maybe you are, right?
Yeah.
Just play the game. It's just a game, right?
Yeah.
Do the cool thing. And so those norms
dice that are easy to read to my 54-year-old eyes are like, I bought some dice that are specifically for my Sisters of Battle.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, they're white pips on a dark background. Yeah, that's the one for me.
Or those big casino dice.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, that, good sportsmanship, how to talk through things, all those things.
That's the first thing I have right there, encouraging sportsmanship and fair play.
Yeah.
Right? Like encourage those things, celebrate those things. Celebrate how to lose, graciously.
Yeah. How to pick a Pyrrhic victory, I think, is a really important thing in Warhammer.
So
you're like,
good.
I'm getting rolled, but your leader is going to die.
I'm going to kill that thing.
And everything in my army, I just ignore everything else. That's going to die. And then you can both have fun, right? And that was something I was working on with Locke is, learning how to do Pyrrhic victories and stuff. Because honestly, I lose so much. I'm really good at picking Pyrrhic victories.
You and me both, buddy. You and me both. Helping and teaching. I mean, Brett, exemplified this in the game day we had the other day, right? Just he was willing to give up some of his time.
Yeah.
It's like, and the great thing about that is like he will get that time back.
Yeah.
Like not one, he made your kid's day,
Yeah.
but two, it's not like we will not stick him with Locke.
No.
Quote unquote stick.
Yeah.
Like he will not be required to play with Locke.
You're not the kid that has to teach the new player every single time.
Next time he shows up, we will ensure he plays like the most enjoyable.
Yeah. And that's again, going back to the respect, right?
Yeah.
Everyone lifts a little bit, and just knowing that and not, cause it's also very easy for people to get burnt out in communities, right? Cause there's the one person who's organizing and then everyone doesn't respect him. And then they're like,
oh, it's incredibly frustrating.
This isn't worth it.
For somebody who organizes a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It is and this is why I feel like such a jerk when I didn't watch Josh's videos or read it. Like I was like, oh my God, I am that person. And I immediately watched both videos and I read everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, I should have done this in advance. I apologize. Like, I cannot tell you how bad I felt about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, how to lose graciously, but how to also win graciously, how to celebrate achievements, helping people hit milestones. Like the whole Hobby Progress Challenge is about helping people set their own milestone and hit it and celebrating them when they hit it,
I had a really cool experience with that in the paint class. I've taken a ton of paint classes. I just enjoy them. And I don't, I don't consider myself a really good painter. I just enjoy it. But there were two kids who were
that don't consider you really good.
Wow. Talking about negativity. There were these two kids who it was their first time picking up an airbrush.
Wow.
And they asked me my feedback on their model. And I was like, why are you asking me? I was like, oh crap, I own the store. I know Dan. Like I've done a ton of these.
They think you know what you're doing.
They think I know what I'm doing. So I had to BS it. But it was really cool to look at their model and pick out the things that were good that I could tell they worked on, and then also pick out the ways of improvement, because so many people have done that for me.
Such an important part of giving feedback there is asking a question like, are you open to some feedback?
That's how I started. And it wasn't because I was intelligent. It was because I was trying to bide my time. They're like, what do you think of this? I was like, do you want me to give you pointers? Because I like it. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah. It's so important. Like, especially in a community where, you know, everybody's art levels are different.
Yeah.
You know, it's important to say, especially when somebody posts something, you know, you go, oh, like they've clearly worked hard. That's why they're posting it.
Yeah.
And they just haven't developed those skills yet. And so a lot of times I learned this, like my boss gave a presentation and I was like, that went really well. I'm like, this thing and this thing probably could have gone, you know, you probably could have done this. And she's like, did I ask for your, how about you start with, do you want feedback? And I'm like,
that was great feedback, boss.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, that was good feedback too, boss. Like, oh boy, did I step in it there. She was also a little sensitive that day because she didn't get the results she wanted from the presentation. But, you know, I learned my lesson from that, which was always ask, you know, hey, you know, this looks great. You know, you want some feedback on how you could easily make it look better.
Yeah.
You know,
that's something I've been learning with my son too, right? Because him and his brother have just been like sloshing paint colors on models for years.
Sure.
And finally he got them on the table. And then I was like, do you want to learn how to use washes, how to do dry brushing and stuff? And he was like super excited about it. And I've brought it up a little bit before because I never wanted to be like, your painting sucks. Look at the thing Dad can do with his in an airbrush and 15 more years experience. Like, and that for me, I learned a lot from teaching my kid about how to deal with other people as well. Because you've just got that. The relationship's going to exist forever.
What's interesting too for you is a lot of times it's probably better to have somebody else have that conversation too. Yeah. You know, Shell as a teacher, like a lot of times could deliver information to a student that their parents could not deliver.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So yeah, that'd be interesting. Like the next time Locke comes over, I'm going to see, I'll take a look and like, we'll figure out a way to give him feedback.
Yeah. And he's
so probably more open to it from other people sometimes.
Yeah. And that was a cool thing here as well, right? It's like, that's specifically why I want him to learn from Brett or someone else, right? To give him that feedback. And there's also, you know, when you're when you're with your people that you feel really comfortable with, you tend to take them for granted, right? It's why kids act out at home,
of course,
and not at school. And so
why my kid talks to me, and I'm like, you talk to your friends like that? Because man, if we were just friends, we would.
Right. Yeah. So there's that aspect of it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, you know, we've gone on first part of the segment pretty far and pretty long, but real quick, leadership and role models. We've kind of delved into this a little bit. I think, you know, the role of community leaders and influencers in your group. That's not like web influencers.
Right.
That's not what I mean, but like people who influence others to kind of follow that path. They're good at setting the tone.
Yeah.
In the words of Shoresy, if you haven't watched Shoresy and you like hockey, check out Shoresy. But they're good at setting the tone for like, this is what we're all about here. You know, how to be a positive role model in that community. You know, they can demonstrate not just through their artistic ability and that kind of stuff, but their likability.
Yeah.
And their steering of the groups.
Yeah.
And again, I'll go back to Brett on this, you know, as an example of effective leadership in a group. Like he held on to that position, a 2-year position for 4.5 years because nobody else wants to do it.
Yeah.
Like it's hard. It's hard work organizing stuff, but Brett did it with a calm at it. Like you can tell, like just talking to him, he's such a calm guy.
Yeah.
if Brett ever blows his stack, I'm going to be like, oh my gosh,
what did you do to him?
What did we do? But he's very calm. He's very smart. He's very professional, but he's also like, he had this air of like, I'm not going to take any nonsense.
Yeah.
Like, again, if you want to do it different, you step up here and run this group. I'm fine with that. And it took him a while to extricate himself from that. And by the way, they've split up what he was doing into like 4 different people.
Normally the case, right? Yeah. When you find a really good person.
Yeah. They're capable of handling.
Yeah.
And he did an amazing job. Like I'm really glad I've met Brett. I think the 4 people who are, they kind of split up the roles a bit, which is actually kind of smart, like to do that. But I think they're going to do a great job too. I'm very excited to see what happens. And they'll have the time and bandwidth to add more to that.
Yeah.
But I could just tell Brett was just like, I'm exhausted. I'm done. and yeah, I mean, he's just really, really a great leader from the fact that you could see people deferred to him. Mm-hmm. And not because, he's in charge. It's just like, because he handled all the discussions with the facility. Yep. He handled this, he handled that. Very, very great example of that. So,
yeah.
All right, let's do this. Let's take a short break. Then let's come back. We'll talk about a couple other points, and then we'll close out the show.
Awesome.
All right, be right back. All right, we're back. We're continuing on with the main theme of this episode around kind of setting a positive environment, making sure that, your gaming club or your organization or just your group has a strong, background of I don't know what I'm trying to say. What am I saying? Let's talk about how you organize positive events.
Yeah. Let's get to what we wrote down.
Oh my God. So the thing I have found, actually, let's start with you. You've run a lot of events at the store.
Yeah.
Now, or had people run those events at the store. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you go about ensuring that this is going to be an event that everybody enjoys? And that's not always a reality.
Yeah.
Like sometimes people, especially in tournaments, like if you're trying to win, somebody's going to lose.
Yeah. It's also, it's for my store, depending on whether it's a paid event or not, also is like, I need to make sure that they felt like they got their value out of it.
Right.
Which is a conversation I have a lot with the instructors.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking more like painting type events.
Yeah. And then and gaming, either one.
But let's talk painting, because that's actually really interesting.
Yeah. So for painting, right? So most of my artists are coming. All of my artists so far have come from out of town. Most of them from overseas.
Mm-hmm. Wow, really?
Yeah. So 2 from Denmark, 1 from the UK, and then Dan from Portland, Oregon. That's the closest I've had so far. And so people are paying $300, $350 for a class for a whole weekend, and so.
That's a lot of outlay.
It's a lot.
I look at that and I go, what could I buy?
Right. What could you buy? Also, what is your partner doing during that time? Right. What do you have to pay for that in time with family and
there's like a social currency.
Yeah. And we are not close, right? We're 45 minutes an hour from everything in the Bay Area. Like it's up in the mountains. It's gorgeous. But there's commute time as well.
Because there's not really hotels.
No, there's campgrounds and a couple Airbnbs. It's a bad spot for a game store. I'll just reiterate that. But it's a great place to visit.
But the rent's good.
Yeah, rent's good. And the gaming group is solid. And so a lot of it has been around those norms as well.
Okay.
And talking with the instructors, making sure that the instructors know what to expect. Mm-hmm. Communicating with students. I'll be honest, I haven't done, it's been a very big learning process for me about communicating expectations early, which I have not done the best job of. But something little we did was
CK was always really good about that.
Oh my gosh, I wish
like they had it dialed in.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Like they would be like, "Here's what you need to bring." Here's like it was a format that they set,
and that was a lot of feedback I got from Dan recently because he's the hobby czar for Nova, and he gave me he asked if I wanted feedback, and then he gave me a lot of feedback about how I could make it better for him and the students, and a lot of it was about communication and expectation setting, which I really, really appreciated because I'm just trying to figure it out, right? But he's done multiple years of Nova,
right?
And so a little example was like Saturday nights, right? The first day of the game of the thing, you're still really energized. You're not burnt out after 2 full days of painting, and getting people to leave was hard, right? Because people just want to paint forever because they've learned all these things. They're super excited about it,
and they're in the middle of it. Everything's set up. They may not have that set up at home.
And then people are like, well, does anyone want to go to a bar? And then there's which bar do we go to? Blah, 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 blah. So there's this cool
get out.
Right. So what I've done the last couple of times and it worked great was I made a reservation for the entire group at a local place that plays music. It's out in the Redwoods. And then everyone gets to leave. I get to lock the door on the store. So their stuff is safe and everyone gets to go chill. It's not over.
Right.
But they get to talk with one another, talk about painting, get to know the painter as well. A lot of people take the international painters because they know them and they've seen their stuff on Instagram or something. Right. So getting that time to just talk with them is really important. And in terms of how that works for other people, I think it's the expectation setting. We're going to start at this time. These are the things you need to bring. If you plan that people aren't going to read, sorry, Josh.
No, it's the reality. Look,
people aren't going to read the directions. And so build that in. And with paint classes specifically, it's have extras on hand for things as much as possible.
Yeah.
And sometimes the other pieces, like I'll tell people 3 or 4 times, bring a light. The lighting sucks. And they won't bring a light. And they're like, do you have one? I'm like, I have got one for me and I've got one for the instructor. I'm sorry. Yeah. And you could either be a jerk about it, or you could be like, well, it was written, I should have brought a light. And so that's a big piece of it. And then on the gaming side, the other piece I think is, again, it's expectation setting, norms. And in the gaming side, especially because on the paint side, part of it is making sure that the instructor has enough time with every person. So the instructors that people really like are the ones that go around and give individualized feedback.
Sure.
They spend time with people, right? That's really important. On the gaming side, it's like, be aware, like look if someone like in your team game with Shell, right? Yeah. Oftentimes what'll happen is someone's army will just be evaporated, right?
Yeah.
So then what do you do in that instance, right?
I was like, use these units.
Right.
They're the same.
But if other people didn't notice, they'd be like, well, you're out. Sorry. I want to play with my army. Right. Yeah. And so you need to be aware of those instances where the probability of dice and weird stuff means someone can feel exclusive. Yeah. And just be aware.
Yeah.
And make sure that they're included. And if you have to change your game plan a little bit, that's why like we play a lot of massive games and we tend to have a GM that can do silly things to just make it more fun. Like if one side is just demolishing the other one, they'll GM something funny, right? Like, a comet hit, or these guys are suddenly blessed or whatever, just so that you're investing a lot of time and effort into being there.
Having your whole day just over in 20 minutes.
Yeah. And that can totally happen, right? It's in the old Apocalypse game, your Titan could get destroyed.
For sure.
All right.
Yep.
Good job, man.
Cool. Cool. Even to this recent game day that I set up, like I'd gotten stiffed a couple times on the like pizza or food that we would order. I mean, some people would pay, but then I'm like, okay, but I just bought $120 for myself.
Yeah, it's like when when everyone doesn't want to split the check and you put in your card, and somehow you always pay 3 times what you bought.
And so, I mean, this time I was like super upfront about it, and I was like, I'm not getting stiffed with this again. I'm like, everybody, you're gonna, I estimated looking at the price, like this is probably what the pizza is going to cost you with this many people. It's about $10 a person. Everybody bring $10.
Yeah.
If you don't bring $10, you can PayPal Shell the $10, but you're going to pay before I order, because I'm not getting stiffed again. But everybody was absolutely fine with that.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think there was anything malicious about me getting stiffed. I think people just there's a lot going on. We're playing games. They're distracted.
Yeah.
They forget about it.
Yeah.
And me and my idiocy didn't like do a check mark of who paid. And so it's like, okay, I ate it a couple times.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to set that up front. Like, here's what we're going to play. Like, it was so funny, again, not reading, I can't remember who it was. Somebody posted, well, what size lists are people bringing? I'm like, did you read the intro? Like, the intro is literally like, hey, game day at the Tuttles, 1,500 or 1,000 points for team games. Like, just bring a 1,500 point list and 1,000. It's very much like the Hobby Progress Challenge. Well, when can I submit? Did you read the thing? Reading the instructions is so important. And I feel like such a jerk saying that. And I'm such a hypocrite for saying that. But I've learned my lesson. Yeah. And I will not do that again. I have to go up to Tacoma for the Open.
Yeah.
And there have been 3 times I've sat down to build my list, and I read through the whole Crusade rules, and I'm like, okay, so how do I put this? And I'm like, I get distracted with something, and now I've gotten the letter from like the GM running the whole event. They're like, okay, here's what's going on. I'm like, oh boy, I really need to sit down and do this. It's getting too close.
Yeah, there was that TikTok trend a couple months ago about mental load for your spouses, specifically calling out men, right? Like, don't ask her where the cheese grater is. It's in the same thing it's always been in, right?
I don't have TikTok.
Anyway, I don't either. I saw it on Instagram, but I think about that with like with the pizza example, right? Like you're going out of your way, have us all in your home, and organize the food, right? Don't add to the mental load that you or any person has to have by saying, did they do that intentionally?
Yeah.
Make me chase you down?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, that's like, and the worst is making somebody chase you down for money, because then they have to ask you for it and they feel uncomfortable.
It feels weird because you're like, aren't we friends? Situation. What? Yeah. $10, Carl? And you're like, no, but it's not that. It's about being respectful and supporting other people.
Right. Right. When I would organize our Geekends, which you went to one.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
When I'd organize the Geekends, is like there was always one individual that like would not pay their share, and I'd be like having to hound them. And I'm like, I'm not going to invite this person anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I don't want to be put in that position. So that's super important.
On that point, just like, don't be so comfortable in the situation that you forget.
Yeah.
I don't know how to put that into words.
No, I get you, because
be comfortable.
Like, my house is like, everybody's super comfortable here. I think. Yeah. Like, people arrive and they just walk in the front door, and we're like, yeah, come on in. Like, it's not a problem. You can sometimes probably forget, and I'm not pointing at anybody. Like, I'm happy people are that comfortable, but you could probably sometimes forget you're in another person's house. Right. You're their guest.
Right.
Respond accordingly. I've gone through a lot of effort to set up all tables and make sure the garbage is empty so people can throw garbage in the garbage and, blah, 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 and make sure all the bathrooms are ready and there's extra toilet paper, So there's a whole set to that. Make sure you respect the person you're coming into. Yep. Gaming events, though, like, I think the important thing is making sure everybody understands, like, here's the rules we're following. Here's what we're doing. It's 1,000, 1,500 point games, trying to set those expectations. As you said, with the painting aspect, if it's in writing and the person chose not to read it, they have nobody to blame themselves. And I feel I can't tell you how bad I feel as we discuss this, that I added to Josh's mental load on a day where none of us really were super efficient with our Necromunda knowledge. And so he was already going to be fielding a ton of questions.
Yeah, we were all new. We were all asking him tons of questions.
It was not fair to Josh.
Yeah, agreed.
I owe Josh.
Yeah.
I got to figure out what I owe him, but I owe him something.
As long as he doesn't listen to the episode, though, he won't even know.
That's true.
Since it doesn't have video, he probably won't even know.
That's true. I'm not in it. I don't want to see it. And I think the big thing when I was in the military was lead by example.
Yep.
Right? Like, be friendly, be accommodating, help encourage people. When I play games, I picked this up from my buddy Matt a long time ago. He was a guy I worked with. Most positive guy I ever knew. Like, and then one day I heard him complain about his new job, and I was like, oh my God, Matt's complaining about something. Like, I can't believe it. But Matt does this thing, you've probably seen me do it, where it's like, you're all, okay, I'm going to shoot these days. I'm like, yeah, you are.
Yeah. You do all the time. It's fantastic.
I'm like, yeah, you are. You're going to shoot the heck out of him. Let's see it. And it's just like this phrase I picked up from him that's like funny, but like encouraging too. Like, yeah, I'm part of this. You're shooting me. All right.
Yeah.
You're going to.
And it's interesting, specifically in 40K, right? I like that as well because it feels like you're both playing, right? Whereas a lot of modern games, you have alternating activations.
Right.
40K, you don't.
No.
Right? It's just one turn. So you can feel like the game is happening to you rather than you're actually playing the game with the other person.
Exactly.
So I love it when you say that because you're like, you're paying attention and you think it's cool when, like Brett thought it was cool when Locke killed his dinosaur.
I like
because it's a cinematic, cool moment, right?
Yeah.
But you could just be like, this sucks. You just killed my most important unit.
Now listen, there's times where I'm getting my butt handed to me. And I'm just like, God, this is really hard to maintain a good attitude. But that's where you switch to the Pyrrhic victory.
Right.
Like, all right, well, what I'm going to do. And I thought about it. And I talked to Shell afterwards in our game where we lost to Ed and Travis. Not by a lot. Like, we murdered a lot of their stuff. But, man, Travis was murdering us with his Phoenix Lord guy. So I said, we should have gone for the secret mission. Because we had it was the first time Shell had been playing with the secondary missions.
Yeah.
And so she was very much you can hear the tip tapping of my dog as she walks through. Hi, Aria. It was the first time she had played the secondary mission, and she was like, I had a hard time kind of understand. I said, that's why the first couple of times we played, we didn't play with them. Like, there's a whole other thing you got to pay attention to. So, I'm very encouraging of the opponent across the table from me. Like, you're going to have fun, and I'm here to have fun with you. And that little phrase, like, it works so well on me. I adopted it and I use it all the time now.
Yeah.
And I think it's so funny because people will laugh when I do it. And I'm just like, yeah, but I'm with you,
It's great. Yeah, I love it.
Okay. The other thing that you can do, and this is whether you're just, if you're running a club, whatever, if you're just setting up an event, cool. If you're owning a store, great. But leveraging online platforms is just critical in this day and age. And as much as I would love to cancel my Facebook account, because I really just...
Aria agrees.
As much as I'd love to cancel my Facebook account, because I have a whole thing about social media at this point that I'm just really down on it.
Yeah.
I feel like it is really good at setting up events.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that I can't disable the maybes. Like, if you're going to come, yes. If you don't know, no.
Yeah.
Like, maybe doesn't help me at all. I just treat maybes as no's.
Yeah.
And it just shows me who's wishy-washy. But utilizing those platforms for sharing information, a lot of people have moved to Discord. And in fact, we're doing our whole Hobby Progress Challenge through Discord. I wish I had known about the forums capability in Discord prior to having everybody set up threads, but we had everybody set up threads.
I didn't even know you could do forums.
Yeah, it's in our Discord channel. Awesome. You should check it out now because we've kind of set up like an area where you can just share your ongoing hobby stuff. It's just much easier to find,
right?
Than searching through a chat that took place 100 years ago.
Yep.
So I've set up like mine. I'm like, I'm tracking everything I'm doing this year. Not just the Hobby Progress Challenge, but like everything that I'm doing, because I'm trying to paint a model for every day of the year, which is not going to happen. I'm at 100, but we're already like 160.
It's a lot better than I'm laughing because it's awesome. And like in July, I think you are ahead so far.
I blast out a bunch of stuff. So certainly, I think leveraging these online platforms, I find that, what's interesting, and I'm just floating out a couple ideas here. I've seen the Faultline Gaming guys, what they do is really interesting. They're using Discord for all of their organization. And so what they'll do is they create a Discord channel they play every Thursday. So it'll be like Thursday the 12th, right? Then Thursday the 19th, Thursday the 26th or whatever it is. And then what you do is people in that day will be like, hey, I'm looking for a game. Has anybody got a game, looking, I want to play my, whatchamacallit. Okay, great. And then if you're coming, they ask you to give a thumbs up in the channel, because then they get a count of how many people are coming.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's so smart. And then once that day passes, they move that day down to like a kind of,
hidden or
it's not even hidden, but it's like in a
Yeah, you can put them down at the bottom.
Yeah, down at the bottom, server. Right? But I was just like, oh, that's very clever. Like, oh, I'm not going to be there this week, but I am going to be there next week, so I'm looking for a game. Hey, is anybody? And you can kind of organize it there, and then, I go to that thing a couple days before. I'm like, hey, are we still on? Yeah, I'm still on. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I'm the same way in that I would get rid of Facebook if it wasn't for Warhammer.
Yep.
And
honestly, the ICs community is the number one reason I keep it.
Yeah. And we use Discord at the store. Someone convinced me to do it. I was like, I tried Discord once on a video game and I didn't like it. And I really, really enjoy it for the store. Yeah. We don't have enough people to do like a channel specifically like every week, but we do have a channel for local Boulder Creek folk where they post, hey, I'm looking for a game. And that's also really cool because we have the QR code and people can just post point their phone at it and join it. They say hello, and people can meet them and they can talk about it. And, and then they feel like they're part of the community. When we first started Herrick Games and Hobbies, we didn't even have a store you could play in. So it was all online. And my tagline for a while, and still sometimes jokingly, is like, we're your FLGS that just happens to be online. Because I grew up in a place that didn't have a game store. Tagline. Yeah.
It's pretty good.
There's a new one that is copying it that I've seen on Facebook advertising, copying close to it. But, and so I would do a lot, and we started right before COVID as well. So a lot of my first customers and friends, including a guy who came to my first class this last week, like that I've known for years now through the store, was all through Facebook, getting to know one another, sharing things, seeing each other in groups. And you really have to have something. And the other nice thing about Discord is it's a social media that's not a social media.
Right.
So people who don't like social media also have the opportunity to jump in there. And
I've seen a lot of my people who have left Facebook are on Discord
It's
servers.
also very nerd, right?
Yeah.
Friendly.
Sure.
Like it's like the nerd social network, right?
For sure.
And so most of the people who are in my server know way more about Discord than I do.
Yeah, that's the same. Of the same. But I think the other thing that gives us the opportunity to do in those environments, whether it's Facebook or whatever, and we actively encourage this across all of our platforms, is, sharing like, okay, you played the game. Here's the pictures we took during the game, so you can kind of get a sense of how things played out. But the other side of that is you now have to, if it's a local thing, you also now have to moderate that.
Right.
And one of the things when we opened the Discord server, I hadn't given a lot of thought to was like, well, what are the rules of the Discord server? And Loopy came to me and that's Adam. And he came to me and he was like, well, hey, what are the rules? And I go, well, they're the same as like, here's our community guidelines is what I call them. And they're on our website. I go, just link to that. And all of this applies.
Yeah.
Like it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
Treat people with respect, and we're not saying don't use foul language, but
right.
I mean, moderate yourselves a little bit and understand that there's younger people in here that probably speak more foul language than you do, but we like to keep it PG-13.
Yeah.
So, then, kind of the last point I wanted to make on this whole topic was around sustaining kind of like long-term positivity, because you can set out from the get-go and be like, here's what we're heading for, but how do you maintain that? And one of the ideas that I had thought about was like creating, I listed like traditions and rituals. We had started a thing called the Psychic Hoodie here a long time ago, and that kind of petered out as soon as Justin got it because he could just like beat everybody. And it was this hoodie that we had like monogrammed and all this stuff, and you would put your name on it. I got the idea from like a golf tournament.
Yeah.
You'd put your name on it if you won.
And I've seen that. Yeah.
And Justin just was a lot, and it survived the fire at Justin's house. By the way,
I remember that's where you showed me the picture of it.
Unfortunately.
Can't do another one if the first one still exists. It's a unique item.
I don't want to do another one. It was an idea, but it didn't really pan out.
Yeah.
One of the ideas that we came up with was, as you know, we did Elite Choice earlier.
Yeah.
Once people kind of reach a point where we're just like repeating their name over and over again, it gets ridiculous. We're like, listen, let's share the wealth. You're going to go into this Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Right. In addition to that, when you get in the Hall of Fame, we send you a special shirt that only IC staff have.
Right.
And you are now, enshrined there.
Yeah.
And I figured out how in like a Facebook group to give them like a Hall of Fame tag.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that like keeps like people motivated. Like if every time we, did Elite Choice, you're listening to Ted Lidgard again, or,
right.
You'd be like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. This is a club I can't play in.
We love those guys. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool. You guys get the Elite thing. It's something people can strive for. And it's not even, this is the cool thing about it. Like, it's not just about painting.
Right.
The guys that are in there are fantastic painters.
Right.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But like community organizers, people who do things for kids,
yeah.
All that resonates with Shell a tremendous amount, right?
Yeah.
Those kinds of things that are standing out, they're doing things for charities or that kind of stuff, like that gets noticed by us and mentioned. And that kind of thing could get you in the Hall of Legends too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I really
that's what got me
the hobby hero
thing, right? Which, we organized this and took stuff up there, and I didn't seek that out.
Yeah.
Like next thing I knew, it was like I got wind, hey, your name's being tossed around for this thing. I was like, oh, that's neat.
Yeah. Now you wear that to
bed.
Yeah. Well, also you wear it to intimidate your opponents while you're teaching them a new game.
That's right.
You and Josh. Thanks, guys. Right. Way to build a positive community for a new guy.
You won. You won.
On that front, so it's really funny. So in the corporate world, right, I was on this team and they talked about how it's one of the ways that you get people to change behavior is you reward the good behavior, you don't make it a competition.
Yes.
And so you reward what people are doing already,
mm-hmm.
and you do it out of the blue.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of
interesting.
There's a lot of power of that, right? Because you're like, hey, we noticed you doing that thing. You deserve recognition for it, rather than being like, who can help the most kids, right? Who can help the most orphans, right? It's like, no, you did that, and we're going to recognize it, and it builds that positivity and that.
Yeah,
that
the Warhammer Hero program, recognizes a wide variety of different efforts.
Yeah.
It's not just, these people made a bunch of people paint stuff.
And it's not a competition.
No.
It's a recognition of people who are helping build the community at a very high level.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. And I think when you do that, like, I love the Hall of Legends. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And I really like the Elite Choice too as well. Like some of the ones I've picked on the two shows have been like really cool ones. Like, I just love them, right? Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily like, oh, you were a Golden Demon winner. Like, I'm not like, and I think recognizing that, and the other thing it builds for the perspective of building a community is those type of things encourage people to remain engaged and involved, right? And you can tell the health of the community by the posts that are happening, people that are engaging on it and being positive with it. Is it a place where people want to share their personal wins? If you finished your painting, do you want to go share it in this group? You want to go share it with your friends because your wife is going to say, wow, you spent 6 hours painting that and the dishes aren't done yet, which is what I get a lot.
Or when you get from my wife, so those birds are done, huh?
Yeah. Dang it.
Guess I'm going back to the dude with birds.
Why are you spent 4 hours on it and the eyeballs are in different directions? Like, it's pro painted, okay? But and so being able to post in the community is really helpful and rewarding and having that call out and ways to do that. There's lots of different ways you can do it.
Yeah. And this was the whole point of like the Elite Choice of the sponsors, of the show to recognize, hey, we appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
All of those things are going back, to kind of the beginning, about what's your community statement, like what's your mission statement, right? Like, our mission statement was to make you feel like a part of our gaming group.
Yeah.
And anything we do that engages with our listeners, I think is, first off, they feel really good about it. I remember before I had a podcast, Bill and Dawson and those guys down at Imperial Voxcast, like, I wrote a review of their show. They didn't ask for feedback, but I gave it to them. But my review was like, I really like hanging, and this is where the idea sprang from, right? At the time I was looking for shows to listen to, and I had my favorites at the time. 40K Radio, was really good. I thought Spencer was a fantastic guy on the mic. Then, I was listening to Imperial Voxcast. I was like, oh, I really like these guys. Oh, and they're in Southern California. Like, I like their banter and stuff. But they would swear so much.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not like opposed to that. And again, it's funny when people meet me in person at a convention or something, I drop with something. They're like, oh my God, Carl Tuttle swears. I'm like, listen, I was in the Army.
Yeah.
I swear. But I keep it PG for the show because I think it just opens up to more people. And that's just my choice. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But one of the feedback I gave was, but they swear so much, it sometimes loses the message of what they're trying to say. And they read my review on the air and they were very positive about it. Like they were like, oh, hey, we got this review. And I think I gave them like 5 stars. I was like, but I'd like to see this. And again, my feedback was very constructive.
Right.
And I remember them reading it. I was like, whoa, they read my name.
Yeah.
Right. I remember that feeling. And it's silly because I know those guys.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, these knuckleheads.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're my friends.
Yeah,
I can call them that.
Yeah.
These knuckleheads, they're just sitting on the couch, talking into a microphone, just like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
But there's something about it that you recognize, like we have a large group of listeners.
Yeah.
And when we recognize somebody for doing something well or providing us feedback or something along those lines, it's kind of nice. I think it feels good to people in general. So whenever we talk about Elite Choice, we always see those posts that are like, oh, I wish, you mentioned me on this. And I'm like, because what you did was awesome.
It was awesome. And we want more of that. We want more of the positivity.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh, anyway, any additional thoughts there?
I will also say the positivity is really helpful from the other way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't think that kind words to me as a store owner would mean as much as they do. Cause sometimes it sucks.
Being a store owner?
Yeah. Or just in general, like organizing events, like there's hard parts, right? Or like wrangling people.
Yeah.
And it's funny how far someone just saying thank you, like truly just say, hey, thank you, or this meant a lot to me and I appreciate it. Like those, I thought I was beyond that level of sentimentality, but it means a lot,
Mm-hmm.
And so like thank the people that are doing the events, that are organizing. And if you're not organizing, just thank them. Like just be part of that respect.
Showing a little bit of appreciation.
Gratitude goes a long way for everybody.
Along that line, I wanted to read a review that we received. I'll read 2 reviews.
Yeah.
Okay. The first one is from, and the interesting thing is there's no way, these are from iTunes.
Yeah.
There's no way I can tie this to who our listener is specifically, but I just want to point this out. This one comes from the UK. I can tell you that much. And it's from Dynamodes with a Z 53. Episode 239 is the title of the review. I warned everybody. I just want to say that right now. I warned everybody. Do not listen to this episode. Show of Force Votann unless you want to spend a lot of money on a new army or expand an existing Votann project. I love the Show of Force episodes, but have never been as compelled to invest in the army as much as I am now with the Leagues of Votann. I'm not sure if it's your sales pitch or because the army is so new and different and has very cool models. However, I'm blaming you. Thank you. Laugh out loud. Listen, Adon fell victim to it with the Drukhari. I fell victim to it with the Custodes, and then I sold off the Custodes because I was like, I'm never going to do this. What am I doing? But it was such a great episode.
Yeah.
But here is probably my favorite review of all time. My favorite review of all time. It's from the US. It came in fairly recently, back in June, from Spooky V's. Straight up Gangsta 40K. With a title like that, I had to read it. And here it is. And this is the kind of appreciation that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, this is funny. And I really did enjoy the read. This is the best review I've ever read. The most thug life, LYFE,
40K podcast out there. Carl's street cred was forged when first Dice smacked another player for accusing him of bringing an extra Vindicator. Deeply involved in the East-West Coast rivalries, he was said to have been involved with several drive-by dicings that ended the careers of several other podcasters. They say he has a D6 tattoo for every other player he has taken out, and that is why they call him Pip Fists. His net lists and codex are so tight that one desperate player hired some rando to ram his truck into Carl's game room in order to shut him down. He failed. A high roller Forge World invented a currency, the Carl, to represent his purchase ability. His holdings alone is said to be greater than the GDP of several small agri worlds. Actually, none of this is true. This is a fantastic show, and Carl and the other hosts are paragons of the gaming community. The show is forged in his and other hosts' love of 40K and its setting, and is fantastic for both veteran and novice players. Just a great review.
Yeah.
And I laugh every time I read it, especially when he's like, he hired some rando to ram his truck into his game room. That's the best ever. So
that's great.
Anyway, yeah, but to your point, like, you know, I'll edit out that gap, but I had to go look up that review to your very point about saying thanks, and like that goes a long way with us too. So.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that said, let's take a short break and then we'll close out the show.
Awesome.
All right. So we're back. So, you know, I mean, like in kind of summary, I hope we gave you some ideas for building a positive community. It's worked very much for us. I have to say, you know, I'm also a part of the 40K Badcast community, which is also incredibly supportive.
Yeah.
Like not surprising.
Right.
Like Dan and Campbell are friends of ours and kind of liked the cut of our jib over here and wanted to do their own thing. And, you know, and they're doing a great stuff over there. I absolutely love their show.
Agreed.
It's one of the few I listen to. I generally don't listen to 40K podcasts because I don't want to be like influenced by them. I want to kind of like set my own kind of tone. But I do listen to them. I do listen to Life After the Cover Save since they've come back. And again, that's because we're tight friends with those guys. And Travis just makes me laugh like nobody's business. Travis and Ed and Blake make me laugh, but Travis is just infectious in his comedy. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I hope we've given you some great ideas. You know, I mean, I would encourage people who are part of communities to step up. Like if you don't like what's going on or you think something could be done better, step forward and say, hey, I'm willing to run this, or I'm willing to, you know, do it. Like I'm planning a day. You know, I've talked to Josh, I've talked on the show about it, where I want to just do like a massive game. Like I want to have like 3 or 4 of us on a side, a themed kind of game with amazing terrain. And like I said, we're not the norm 40K players, so we could set up something pretty darn amazing and just play all day, not worry about it. Just, you know, basically a giant apocalypse game, old school apocalypse, right? Just for fun.
Yeah, we've done that a couple of times at my store with Fantasy.
I love that stuff.
It is so cool.
I love that stuff. Yeah. So, you know, the other thing I would say is I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts and stories about like positivity and ideas you've had. If you could share that in our Discord or on our Facebook group, would absolutely love to hear ideas and experiences you folks have had there that maybe we can incorporate. So totally open to that. Yeah. Did I cut you off? I didn't mean to cut you off.
I don't remember what I was going to say.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So anyway, great stuff.
Oh, I do remember what I was going to say.
Okay.
So as a store owner, I wanted to say, so in the United States, most of our gaming goes on in stores, right? As opposed to in other places where they have gaming communities and game halls and stuff.
Or garages.
Right. And
because we have houses typically bigger than most countries.
Yeah, but like the UK stores tend to not, from my understanding, tend to not have a lot of game space.
This is very true. That's why they have clubs.
Yeah. And so I would say if you're especially for the US listeners, if you're playing at a store, just approach the owner and say, hey, I want to organize something. And one, if they say no, there's probably something wrong with the owner or something going on.
Or it's a GW store.
Yeah, or it's a GW store. But
even GW stores, like they'll let you organize stuff in them if they have like the game space.
Yeah. And I like I said earlier in the story, like I would love to organize tons of stuff, but what I can contribute to the community is providing the space where everyone can play, the terrain and the tables. Right. And I love it when people come and say, I want to organize a campaign. I want to organize a mega battle. What day works for you to open the store? And, and that is awesome. And so like, if you want to do it, like just go do it. And it might take a couple times, right? You'll learn how to do it better. You'll learn who can come, like you'll learn these things, but like, I want to say that most store owners are going to say yes if you go approach them about it, because they're doing it for a reason, right? They want to have the community there and, you know, be aware there's a lot of things that go on in a store, right? Figuring out will it be commercially viable, blah, blah, blah. But like have that conversation with the store owner. And I can say most of the time you'll probably have a good experience.
You know, as a side note, and I think I mentioned this to you before, like running a store, it's always like gamers are always like, oh, I'd love to run a game store. And I'm like, I hope you like retail. Because that's really what it is. I mean, you love the product. That's great. But it really is just retail.
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I wrong?
You're not wrong.
Okay.
Endless inventory.
Yeah.
Endless inventory. And the inventory is always wrong. I don't know how I can do it the day before and the inventory will be wrong the next day. So,
shortage, man.
Yeah. Apologies to everyone who has been on the other side of that for me.
All right. Well, listen, thanks so much for listening to us. And hopefully we get Josh back soon. We miss you, Josh.
Yeah, we do.
But we'll probably have a guest host for next episode as well, or two. So if you could leave us reviews on iTunes, Pipfist would appreciate it.
Hashtag Thug Life.
Hashtag don't crash a car into my house. We have a Facebook group that we talked about. We obviously have the Discord we talked about as well. The Hobby Progress Challenge is off to an amazing start. 140 participants at the moment. You know, and not all those people are going to cross the finish line or even, you know, make it to the first hurdle.
Yeah.
But that's okay. That's okay. You know, I mean, every journey starts with the first step.
Yeah. And if you miss the first hurdle, do the second one.
That's fine.
There's 12 hurdles.
There's 12 hurdles and some bonus hurdles in there too. Yeah. Like, you know, certain months you paint a certain type of unit, you get double points. So that's cool. And, you know, again, it's one of those things where it's like one month is like vehicle month.
Yeah.
Oh, if you paint a vehicle, well, what if the game system I'm playing doesn't have a vehicle? Give me an alternative.
Yeah. Paint a giant.
Yeah, cool. Or whatever. You know, I mean, like, give me an alternative. Like, hey, in lieu of a vehicle, we have this. Okay, cool. Do that thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be 40K related. It could be any game system you want.
Just put paint on models.
Put paint on models. The war on gray plastic continues. Yeah. As you know, we have a Patreon. We really appreciate our Patreon supporters at this point. It's super helpful. It has funded some new equipment. Shockingly enough, some video equipment, which until Josh comes back, I don't know how to use. So there's that.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. I'm sorry it's going to waste. I promise you we will get back to there because I was really enjoying putting the stuff on video. We were having a lot of fun with that. So until next time, this is Carl.
This is Sky.
And we're coming to you from the Astronomicon, where everyone is welcome.
Don't be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk. We'll see you next time.
This episode of The Independent Characters is protected by the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find information on the front page at theindependentcharacters.com.
I'm just going to let gravity do the rest of this because I'm so...
I'm so round.
Yeah.
She's my little bowling ball. And she always does it. She's flirting with you is what she's doing.
Oh, she's trying to get me a rubber belly.
Mm-hmm. And she's the only cat I've ever had that you can just like, you can stick your face in her belly. She has never scratched anybody. Well, she scratched me because she's gotten startled and jumped off.
Yeah.
But never like in anger.
I have a cat now that's so fat that the only reason he scratches you is because he's trying to jump into your arms, but he can't reach. So he scratches you all the way up.
Yeah, she's super trusting of it. But then, people come over and she goes and hides. And I'm like, nobody has ever hurt you. I don't know why you're hiding. So, all right. Give me a blank second.